Tonight we enter a temple whose doors have been sealed for more than 4,000 years. You stand in the dim edge of southern Mesopotamia, where the rivers spread through reed beds and mud brick cities. In the 19th century, when excavators began lifting tablets from buried mounds, they did not find only royal boasts. They found prayers, school exercises, lists of gods, temple accounts, and ritual words. Scholars at the British Museum, the University of Pennsylvania, Yale, and Oxford have studied these tablets for generations. Their work confirms a simple but unsettling truth. In Sumer, a name was not merely a sound. A name could be a key. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as the night gathers around you, leave your location and local time in the comments. It is strangely comforting to know that somewhere else, another listener is awake beneath a different ceiling, hearing the same old dust move softly in the dark. Now you breathe slowly. The air around you is warm, thick with the scent of river clay, sheep wool and old smoke. Far away, a dog barks near a canal, and somewhere closer and sandals scrape against packed earth. The temple wall rises pale in moonlight, its bricks still holding the heat of the day. Nothing here feels hurried. Even silence seems to have been carefully placed. You are not entering a world of fantasy. You are entering a world where belief and administration sit side by side. The same culture that recorded grain rations also preserved hymns to gods. The same scribes who counted jars of oil also copied myths of creation, kingship and divine power. Rather efficient, really. If eternity must be managed, someone still has to track the barley. Records from ancient cities such as Uruk, Nippur, and Lagash confirm that temples were not quiet little chapels. They were powerful institutions, owning land, directing labour, storing goods, and shaping public life. To a Sumerian, the temple was not separate from the city. It was the city's beating centre, the place where heaven leaned down and touched the dust. And within that centre stood the priest. Not the priest of later imagination alone, wrapped in mystery and muttering in corners. He was also an organiser, purifier, singer, calendar keeper, and watcher of signs. She might be a temple woman of status, moving through rituals with disciplined grace. They lived in a world where the gods were not distant ideas. The gods were present, demanding, generous, dangerous, and rather particular about procedure. That is where the hidden name begins to matter. In many ancient traditions, the true name of a being holds unusual power. Sumerian texts do not always explain this idea plainly, because ancient people were inconsiderate enough not to write textbooks for the modern confusion. Instead, the idea appears through fragments. A god receives titles that reveal functions. A city gains sacred identity through a divine name. Nidun. A king reshapes his authority through a name granted, chosen, or praised. A demon is resisted by being identified. A sufferer is protected when ritual speech places him under divine care. The name does something. It locates a person in the great arrangement of things. It connects the body to family, family to city, city to God, and God to destiny. In Sumerian thought, destiny was not only personal ambition or private longing, it was part of a wider structure. A pattern of decrees, roles, boundaries, and powers. To be named was to be placed. To be renamed, perhaps, was to be placed again. That possibility is the soft unease at the centre of the story. You step farther into the temple court. The floor is cool now beneath your feet. A basin catches the faint reflection of stars. A priest lifts water in careful hands. He washes not because he dislikes dirt, though the dust here is enthusiastic. He washes because ritual purity prepares the body for dangerous nearness. The unseen world is not approached casually. You do not wander into divine attention like someone entering a market for onions. You prepare. A mainstream historical fact steadies the scene. Cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia preserve long lists of divine names and titles, copied by scribes across centuries. These lists were not random curiosities. They organized knowledge, ranked powers, and trained memory. Scholars from major universities have shown that such lists formed part of scribal education. A student learned the world by learning its signs, categories, and names. There is something almost tender about that. A young scribe sits with a reed stylus pressed into wet clay. He copies a sign badly, smooths it away, and tries again. The tablet smells of damp earth. His teacher may sigh, some things never change, yet the lesson is not small. Each sign leads into an ordered universe. Each name carries weight. The student is not only learning writing, he is learning how reality is filed, invoked, remembered, and controlled. Here, then, is the first hidden doorway. If the visible name is the name spoken in daylight, the hidden name belongs to deeper knowledge. It may be a divine title known in ritual. It may be a secret formula attached to healing. It may be a private identity guarded against harm. It may be a way of speaking to a god not as a stranger, but as one who knows the proper door. Scholars still debate how far this belief reached into ordinary Sumerian life. Some researchers emphasize temple ritual and elite scribal culture. Others wonder whether similar fears and hopes reached families, healers, and village households. The evidence does not permit certainty, and it rarely does. Clay breaks, context disappears. A missing line can swallow an entire world. Still, the pattern remains. The Sumerians believed speech could act. A blessing could protect. A curse could injure. A hymn could praise the god into presence. A lament could rebuild broken order through grief, shaped carefully into words. Language was not decoration. Language was work. And hidden language was specialized work. A quirky tidbit lingers at the edge of this belief. Some later Mesopotamian magical texts include instructions so specific that they can feel almost bureaucratic. The ritualist might use certain plants, threads, figurines, water, flour, or whispered formulas. It is oddly practical, like a recipe book written for people negotiating with invisible trouble. You can almost imagine a tired priest thinking, yes, of course the demon requires 3 knots and clean water. Naturally, yet beneath the oddness lies a serious human fear. What if misfortune has Eostein? What if illness, grief, failure, infertility, madness, or dread can be addressed because it belongs to a structure? What if the invisible pressure on a life is not meaningless? And what if a trained speaker, standing between human weakness and divine order, can shift that pressure slightly? Not erase it. Not command the universe like a king shouting at clouds, but alter its path. You feel the night deepen around the temple. The stars above Sumer are sharp and innumerable. The river moves beyond the walls, slow and black beneath the reeds. In this landscape, human life is fragile. Floods come, crops fail, children sicken, kings rise and vanish, cities burn, rebuild, and burn again. Against such uncertainty, a hidden name offers a strange comfort. It suggests that destiny is not entirely mute. It suggests there are doors within doors, meanings beneath names, and names beneath ordinary speech. Perhaps a person is not only what neighbours call them. Perhaps a life has a deeper designation, known to gods, feared by demons, guarded by priests, and sometimes glimpsed in ritual. You stand in that possibility now. The temple is quiet, but not empty. Its stones seem to remember footsteps. Its walls hold traces of oil, smoke, hands, and songs. Somewhere within, a tablet dries in darkness. On it are signs pressed by someone who never imagined you. Yet the marks remain, patient as sleeping seeds. And there, at the beginning of this journey, one thought settles softly. If a name can bind a life to fate, then a hidden name might loosen it. Perhaps this is why Sumerian priests listened so closely to words. Perhaps this is why they guarded divine titles, copied sacred lists, and spoke formulas at moments of danger. They were not simply decorating belief with beautiful syllables, they were reaching toward the machinery of destiny, one breath at a time. And perhaps, in the quietest chamber of the ancient temple, the human future was never imagined as fixed stone. Perhaps it was clay, soft for a moment, waiting for the right name. You move among scribes while the temple slowly wakes under a pale and watchful sky. The first light has not yet broken fully across the canals, but the tablet house is already breathing. Clay rests in shallow baskets, damp and heavy, gathered from the riverbank and kneaded by patient hands. Reed styluses lie in rows like tiny spears. A low bench waits beside a wall where yesterday's lessons have dried to a dull brown. This room smells of wet earth, wool robes, lamp smoke, and the faint sharpness of crushed reeds. Here, writing begins with touch. A scribe does not draw letters as you might on paper. He presses signs into clay. Each mark made by the angled tip of a reed, the tablet receives the pressure and keeps it. Soft matter becomes memory. That is one of the quiet miracles of Sumer, and also one of its strangest comforts. A thought can leave the mouth, pass through the hand, enter the mud, and remain. Rather impressive for dirt. The mainstream record is firm here. Archaeologists and historians from major institutions, including the University of Pennsylvania and Oxford, have long studied the earliest cuneiform tablets from southern Mesopotamia. Many of the oldest examples concern accounting, labour, offerings, livestock, fields, and grain. They show a society deeply interested in counting the world. Yet over time, that same writing system carried hymns, myths, laments, school texts, and lists of divine names. So the tablet house is not merely an office, it is a threshold. You see young students practicing signs under the gaze of an older teacher. Their hands are still clumsy, their backs ache, their eyes follow every movement of the reed. One sign stands for a thing, another points toward a sound, another carries meanings that shift according to context, which is very inconsiderate of it. You can almost hear the soft frustration of boys and girls learning that writing is not a simple road. It is a marsh with clever paths. The teacher speaks a name. The students repeat it. Their voices are quiet because the room teaches quietness. A name is copied onto the clay, then copied again. A god's title, a city's name, a profession, a kind of vessel, a measure of barley. 8 words seems ordinary until you notice the pattern. To learn writing is to learn categories. To learn categories is to learn how the culture imagines reality. The world becomes knowable because it can be named, listed, measured, and placed. A temple depends on this order. Offerings must be remembered. Workers must be assigned. Land must be marked. Festivals must arrive at the proper time. The gods must receive what is due to them, and humans must avoid the embarrassment of divine displeasure. No one wants a cosmic audit. So the tablet becomes more than a tool. It becomes a small rectangle of controlled time. You lean closer. A tablet sits in the palm of a scribe. His thumb leaves a smudge at the edge. On its surface, several names appear with the still wet shine of newly pressed signs. Perhaps they belong to workers, perhaps to deities, perhaps to goods assigned under temple authority. The exact purpose changes from tablet to tablet, but the habit remains clear. Naming brings a thing into a system. The named person can be counted, summoned, obligated, protected, taxed, praised, or remembered. That sounds cold at first, yet it also means the named person has not vanished into nothing. A servant girl carrying wool, a brewer delivering beer, a herdsman responsible for sheep, a singer attached to ritual service. Each may appear for one small instant in clay. Not as a full life, of course. The tablet does not record her laughter, his fear, their private disappointments. Ancient paperwork is rarely sentimental. Still, a name survives where a body does not. This is where breath enters the story. In Sumerian ritual imagination, spoken words had force. The mouth released them into the world, but they were not thought to be empty air. A hymn could honour, a curse could wound, a prayer could request favour, a formula could guide a ritual action toward its intended result. When that spoken word was then fixed in clay, it gained another kind of life. Breath became sign, sound became object. You can hold it. There is an open scholarly debate about how ordinary people understood this power. Some historians focus on trained scribes and temple specialists because they left most of the surviving records. Other researchers ask whether a broader culture of naming, blessing, and protective speech moved through homes, markets, and childbirth rooms. The evidence is uneven, and the silence of the poor is especially deep. Yet it is difficult to imagine that words felt powerful only inside formal buildings. Human beings carry fear everywhere, especially at night. A mother may whisper over a sleeping child. A worker may mutter against bad luck. A traveller may speak a god's name before crossing a canal in darkness. These moments do not always become tablets, they fade with a breath, but the same instinct appears in recorded ritual language. To speak correctly is to stand less helplessly before uncertainty, and the scribes knew correctness. They copied lists with stern discipline. They learned divine name in sequence. They practiced signs until the hand could move almost without thought. In some school tablets, mistakes are still visible, little scars of learning pressed into clay. The past becomes suddenly human there. A student misses a sign. A teacher corrects it. Someone saws 4,000 years later. You can still sense the awkward silence. A quirky fringe tidbit circles the tablet house like a moth near flame. Some modern enthusiasts have imagined that cuneiform tablets hide secret codes from lost beings, star travellers, or forgotten masters of destiny. Most scholars do not accept such claims. The tablets are extraordinary enough without borrowing spacecraft. Yet the fascination itself reveals something useful. Even today, people sense that ancient writing seems to hold more than information. It feels like a locked room, perhaps because it is. Not locked by aliens, probably. Locked by distance, damage, and human forgetting. The scribes themselves also believed in layers of knowledge. Not every word belonged to every ear. Some names were public, sung in hymns or carved in inscriptions. Others belonged to specialized ritual settings. A divine title might reveal a god's function in healing, storm, fertility, wisdom, or judgment. To know which name to use was not a minor matter. You would not address a judge as a gardener, unless your legal strategy was extremely adventurous. The right name opened the right relationship. You watch a priest enter the room, his garment brushed clean, his hair arranged with care. He speaks briefly with the chief scribe. No one raises a voice. The matter could be simple, perhaps an offering list or a festival schedule, yet even simple things carry gravity here. A temple calendar is not just a calendar, it is the rhythm by which the community meets divine expectation. A tablet is selected. The priest studies it, lips barely moving. Here, reading becomes nearly ritual in itself. The signs do not shout, they wait. The reader must awaken them with knowledge, memory, and breath. A written name remains silent until a trained mouth restores its sound. In that small act, the ancient world reveals its delicate chain. Clay needs sign. Sign needs reader. Reader needs tradition. Tradition needs belief. Without belief, the tablet is only baked mud. With belief, it becomes a doorway. The room grows brighter now. Dust turns golden in the first beam of sunlight. Outside, someone leads goats past the wall, their hooves tapping lightly. A jar is set down with a hollow sound. The day gathers its ordinary tasks. Yet the tablet house continues its quieter labour. Names are pressed, names are checked, names are remembered. You begin to feel why hidden names mattered. A public name identifies the surface of a life. It lets neighbours call you, employers assign you, and family mourn you. But a hidden name suggests another layer. It implies that beneath the social person stands a deeper person, known perhaps to gods or guarded by ritual speech. If that deeper identity can be touched, then destiny itself may be touched. Not loudly, not with thunder, with pressure, breath, and a reed stylus entering clay. The scribe places the finished tablet on a shelf to dry. For now, it remains fragile. A careless hand could blur it. A dropped basket could break it. Time itself may bury it, fire it, preserve it, or scatter it into fragments. Still, for this moment, the name is held between softness and permanence. That is the ancient tension. A human life is also held there, soft enough to be shaped by birth, family, city, illness, prayer, fear, and hope, permanent enough to leave marks no one expected to survive. The Sumerian priest, watching the signs dry, may not think in modern word, but he understands something your own quiet mind can recognize. What is spoken may fade. What is written may remain. And what is secretly named may wait, patient and unseen, beneath the surface of a life. Your mind drifts toward Uruk, where the city rises like a pale mirage from the plain. The morning heat gathers solely over the canals, reeds tremble in the breeze, and the river carries small pieces of straw along its brown surface. Beyond the water, walls of mud brick catch the sun and glow with a colour close to dried honey. You hear donkeys complaining softly near a gate, which seems reasonable, since donkeys have always understood civilization as extra work. The streets are narrow and alive. People move with baskets, jars, tools, and bundles of wool. Children slip between adults with the quickness of sparrows. A baker leans over a clay oven, and the smell of bread mixes with fish, damp rope, dung fuel, and garden herbs. Somewhere a woman beats cloth clean beside a water channel. Somewhere a potter turns wet clay beneath steady fingers. Every sound is practical, close and human, yet above it all stands the temple. Uruk was one of the great cities of ancient Sumer, and archaeological research has shown that it grew into a major urban centre during the 4th millennium before the Common Era. Scholars at institutions such as Yale, Cambridge, and the University of Chicago have examined its architecture, seals, tablets, and monumental precincts. Their work confirms that Uruk was not merely a large settlement. It was one of the earliest known experiments in city life. That fact matters. A village may know you by fees, by family, by the tone of your walk at dusk. A city needs other methods. It needs records, titles, roles, gates, districts, overseers, temple offices, and names that can travel farther than memory. In a city, identity becomes organized. A person becomes part of a structure that no single mind can hold at once. You feel that structure around you. The city is not random noise. It has pulse and pattern. Fields beyond the walls feed storehouses within them. Craftsmen produce goods for temples, households, and trade. Priests keep calendars and rituals. Scribes record movement through signs. Labourers carry mud brick to rising platforms. The gods receive offerings, and the city receives meaning in return. It is a bargain of dust and heaven. At the centre stands a sacred precinct, where architecture teaches the body how to feel small. The temple platform lifts worship above ordinary ground. Steps rise beneath a wide sky. Walls are whitened, repaired, touched by sunlight, and seen from a distance across the flatland. The building says what words cannot quite say. Here is the axis. Here is the place where the city looks upward The Sumerians did not imagine the divine as a private mood. The gods belonged to land, weather, craft, fertility, kingship, wisdom, war, love, and death. They were woven through the visible world. A temple was the god's house, and the city existed partly by maintaining that house. Food, drink, to music, incense, garments, and precious objects passed into ritual service. The gods were honoured with the care given to powerful guests, except these guests could influence harvests and destinies. A little hospitality seems more wise. You walk closer to the temple precinct and notice how the city rearranges itself around sacred space. The grand buildings do not simply decorate Uruk, they discipline it. Roads bend toward them, labour flows into them, wealth collects there, then moves outward in rations, assignments, festivals, and authority. The temple names roles, and those roles name people. This is not an abstract idea. A man carrying reeds may be known as a worker of a certain household. A woman grinding grain may belong to a temple labour group. A singer may be identified by her ritual function. A brewer, herder, lamentation singer, gatekeeper, metalworker, farmer, or scribe is not only an individual, each is also a named part in the living machine of the city, and the machine has memory. The mainstream historical record shows that administrative tablets from southern Mesopotamia often list individuals in relation to labour, rations, and institutional duties. Those documents may look dry to modern eyes, yet they reveal a society in which names tied people to tasks, household, and sacred economies. A destiny could feel less like personal choice and more like assigned position. That is where the temple becomes unsettling. It does not only bless life, it arranges life. It tells the city when to gather, when to celebrate, when to mourn, when to bring offerings, and when to renew bonds with the gods. Time itself becomes ceremonial. The year is not an empty road. It is a circle of sacred obligations, watched by priests and measured by signs. For a moment, it feels as though the city is breathing through the temple. The air changes near the gateway. You smell oil, smoke, wool, and the faint sweetness of dates. A servant carries a jar with both hands. Another sweeps dust from a threshold that will soon be dusty again, because Mesopotamia enjoys repetition. A priest passes without hurry, and people make space around him. His power is not only political, it is atmospheric. He knows where things belong. He knows which offering belongs to which day. He knows which god receives which title. He knows the calendar, the gestures, the purified tools, and the words that must not be carelessly altered. In a culture where right order protects fragile life, such knowledge has immense weight. The priest becomes a keeper of alignment. Yet scholars continue to debate how centralized this power truly was. Some historians describe temple institutions as dominant engines of early urban life. Others argue for more complicated arrangements involving households, kin groups, local elites, and changing political authority. The evidence suggests neither a simple priestly kingdom nor a casual marketplace. Uruk was stranger than both. It was an experiment still learning for itself. A fringe curiosity clings to Uruk because of that strangeness. Modern storytellers sometimes imagine it as a city of impossible secrets, where priests preserved knowledge from a vanished age. The archaeological evidence does not prove such tales. Still, the city's scale, age, and sudden complexity can make even sober minds pause. How did people learn to live like this, in such numbers, under such pressure, with gods above and mud beneath? The answer is probably not one answer. Irrigation mattered, trade mattered, temple organization mattered, labor mattered, stories mattered, fear mattered too. But human beings do not build cities only because they are efficient. They build them because they believe something larger than themselves can be made visible in brick with ritual, law, and name. You pause in a shaded passage. The wall beside you is rough under your palm. Its sun-dried surface has been repaired many times. Each brick was shaped by hand, set in courses, and made part of a pattern. The city is like that wall. One life presses against another. One duty rests above another. Each name becomes a brick in the social order. But what happens when a name changes? A child becomes an apprentice becomes a scribe, a woman becomes a priestess, a man becomes a servant of a temple household. A ruler takes a royal title and appears in inscriptions with divine favour wrapped around him. Every new title shifts the person slightly. The city sees them differently. The gods may be asked to see them differently too. Identity here is not merely inward. It is public, ritual, economic, and cosmic. To be named is to be recognised by the system. To be unnamed is to drift near the edge of it. To hold a hidden name, known only in sacred speech, would be to possess a secret anchor beneath the city's visible order. The thought settles quietly. You look across Uruk as the sun climbs higher. Heat rises from roofs. Birds wheel above the temple platform. The canals shine like narrow strips of metal. The people below continue their tasks, unaware that distant ages will call their city ancient, mysterious, foundational, almost impossible. To them, it is simply today. Yet beneath that ordinary day, the old belief stirs. The city names the person. The temple names the city. The gods name the order of the world. Somewhere inside this ladder of names, a human destiny waits to be recognized, redirected, or sealed. And Uruk, enormous and fragile, listens beneath the sky. For a moment it feels as though memory itself begins to loosen beneath your feet. The city fades into a deeper darkness, and your thoughts travel toward a time older than streets. There are no gates here, no storehouses, no scribal benches, no courtyard swept at dawn. There is only the broad land before arrangement, the wet breath of rivers, the open sky, and the feeling that order has not yet finished waking. Long before recorded history, people looked at the world and saw presence everywhere. The river did not merely flow, it carried intention. The storm did not merely break, it arrived with force and character. The fields did not merely grow, they answered to powers beyond the farmer's hand. In Sumerian imagination, the universe was not silent matter waiting for human explanation. It was alive with beings, offices, commands, permissions, and ancient authority, and names gave shape to that aliveness. A mainstream historical fact rests beneath this vision. Sumerian literature preserves some of humanity's earliest written mythic compositions, copied on clay tablets from cities such as Nippur. Scholars at the University of Pennsylvania, Yale, and Oxford have studied hymns, myths, and lexical lists that reveal a richly organized divine world. The gods were not vague spirits floating through fog. They had names, epithets, family relationships, cities, temples, power, and spheres of action. The divine world had structure. This matters because a name in such a world does not sit on the surface. It points toward function. A god's name and titles can reveal what that god does, where that god belongs, and how humans may approach that god. A title might recall a city, but a cosmic role, a terrifying power, or a generous gift. To speak such a name is not only to identify, it is to orient yourself within the unseen map. You can almost feel that map unfold. Above you spreads the great heaven. Beneath you lies the dark earth. Between them move winds, waters, stars, plants, animals, humans, and the unpredictable moods of kings. The Sumerians imagined layers of reality, each with its own powers and boundaries. The gods hold offices in this cosmic order. They do not simply exist, they govern, receive, decree, desire, quarrel, and remember. Very busy, these gods, in this older mythic atmosphere. Naming appears as an act of definition. A place becomes significant when linked to a god. A temple becomes more than architecture when called the house of a divine presence. A ruler becomes more than a strong man when his name is joined with favour from heaven. Even the simplest human identity begins to feel threaded into something vast. Your mind drifts toward the possibility that names existed before human voices learned to speak them. Not literally as ink on air, not as modern writing waiting invisibly in the sky, rather as powers, roles, and meanings already present in the world. The storm has its nature before someone names it. The river has its danger before a priest sings beside it. The newborn has a life before the family gathers to choose a sound. Naming does not create all things from nothing. It reveals, assigns, and binds. That is the subtle difference. The old myths often move through beginnings, separations, gifts, and decrees. Heaven and earth are distinguished. Cities receive divine patrons. Kingship descends into the human world. Sacred powers are distributed among gods and institutions. These stories do not behave like modern history. They are not minutes from a meeting. Thankfully, they are maps of meaning, composed in images, rhythms, and sacred memory. Yet they preserve a serious idea. Reality has to be ordered. Chaos is always nearby. Flood, hunger, illness, invasion, sterility, drought, and forgetting press at the edges of life. A name becomes one way of holding the world steady. When the right thing is called by the right name, it stands inside order. When names are confused, hidden, stolen, or erased, order trembles. A quirky fringe tidbit appears in modern discussions of Sumerian tradition. Some readers claim that old god lists preserve secret evidence of unknown beings from a lost age. Professional historians remain cautious and usually far more boring in the healthiest possible way. They treat such lists as scribal, theological, and educational documents, yet even cautious reading admits their wonder. Why did ancient scholars copy name after name with such seriousness? Because names were not trivia. They were architecture. The lists built a heaven you could study. Imagine a young priest or scribe reciting divine names until the tongue becomes tired. Each name is a step. Each title opens another chamber. Some gods are great and widely worshipped. Others appear obscure, local, specialized, almost hidden in the margins of the divine household. To modern ears, this may sound like cataloguing dust. To Sumerian ears, it may have sounded like learning the hidden grammar of the universe. There is an open debate among scholars about how these divine names developed. Some emphasize local cults merging into larger systems as cities interacted. Others focus on scribal schools, where learned tradition arranged gods into lists and families. Still others examine political change, because human power often rearranges divine emphasis. The clay does not give one final answer. It gives fragments, and fragments require humility. That humility is useful. It prevents the story from becoming too neat. The Sumerians did not possess one simple doctrine of names. Their world shifted across centuries. Cities rose, rivaled one another, and changed. Gods gained prominence, absorbed traits, or appeared under new titles. A divine name might carry echoes from older local worship, temple scholarship, royal ideology, and ritual need. A name could become a layered chamber. You step into that chamber quietly. Inside it, sound feels older than speech. You hear wind moving through reeds. You hear water lap against a bank. You hear a nightbird cry across the marsh. Then, within human settlement, you hear voices trying to answer. They call the powers by names, not because they fully understand them, but because calling is the beginning of relationship. A child knows into to name a fear is to make it slightly less formless. To name a hope is to bring it closer. To name a dead person is to keep them from vanishing entirely. To name a god is to stand, trembling but not mute, before the force that shapes your days. The Sumerian priest stands inside that human instinct, but with ritual training wrapped around it. He does not invent names casually. He inherits them. He copies them. He whispers them in proper settings. He may know titles that ordinary worshippers rarely hear. He may choose one divine name rather than another, because the ritual requires a precise relationship. The healer does not call on any power at random. The lamentation singer does not address grief with careless speech. The offering does not float upward namelessly. Everything has placement, in a time no longer remembered. Before the ordinary listener ever sees a tablet, the hidden name may begin as this deeper placement. It is the name not used in the market, not shouted across a field, not scratched quickly into a ration list. It is the name that belongs to essence, office, danger, or transformation. It is known because knowledge itself has been arranged by temple memory. You feel the weight of that idea settling slowly. If the public name attaches you to society, a hidden name attaches you to a hidden order. It may bind the vulnerable body to divine protection. It may mark a spiritual identity beneath the visible one. It may allow a ritual specialist to speak not merely about you, but into the pattern that holds you. Perhaps that is why the oldest named Fishlesum are so strangely luminous. They are not explanations, they are openings. The dark land before cities is gone now, but its shadow remains under every temple floor. Beneath every written list lies an older listening. Beneath every sacred title lies the human need to believe that the world is not entirely random. And beneath every human name lies the quiet suspicion that something deeper has already been spoken. Not by the crowd, not by the household, perhaps by the order of things itself. In your ears, the echo changes into soft footsteps crossing a purified floor. The priest moves through the temple before the heat grows heavy. His garment is plain at first glance, yet every fold has purpose. His hands have been washed. His hair is arranged with ritual care. He carries nothing casually, not even kiamaska. Around him, servants prepare vessels, sweep thresholds, and set offerings in places that have been chosen long before his own birth. You notice the discipline of the morning. A jar is lifted with both hands. A cloth is folded without hurry. A small flame is coaxed from embers until the room smells of oil and smoke. The light trembles on the wall, touching baked brick, polished stone, and the dark rim of a basin. Somewhere nearby, grain is poured into a container with a sound like dry rain. The priest listens, not because the room is loud, but because the sacred world requires attention. A mistake in ordinary life may cost a loaf of bread or a sheep. Mistake in ritual, people feared, might invite something less negotiable. The gods were generous, certainly. They could also be exacting house guests. One does not serve heaven with lazy hands and hope for glowing reviews. The mainstream historical record supports this atmosphere of careful service. Mesopotamian temple personnel performed many specialized duties, including purification, lamentation, music, offering preparation, divination, and administration. Scholars from the University of Chicago, Harvard, and Oxford have examined texts that show priestly work was not one simple occupation. It was a wide field of roles, inherited knowledge, technical speech, and public responsibility. The priest is therefore not only holy, he is trained. He knows the calendar of festivals, the order of offerings, the names of divine recipients, and the gestures required in sacred rooms. He understands which objects must be clean, which words must be spoken, which spaces must be entered, and which boundaries should remain untouched. His authority comes from memory as much as from status. Memory is his instrument. You follow him into an inner chamber where the air feels cooler. The stone beneath your feet seems to hold night longer than the courtyard. A vessel of water rests near the wall, covered to protect it from dust. The priest lifts the cover and pauses. That pause is not emptiness. It is a small gate between ordinary action and ritual action. Then he speaks. The words are measured, shaped by tradition, and softened by repetition. They may bless, invite, purify, or separate. Their meaning matters, yet their proper performance matters too. In the Sumerian sacred world, a formula was not merely beautiful language. It was a tool that had to be used correctly. A tool can mend, but a careless tool can wound. That is why hidden names belong naturally to priests. Not because every priest knows all secrets. No human institution has ever managed secrets that neatly. But temple specialists preserve controlled knowledge. They know which divine title belongs to which ritual need. They know what must be spoken openly and what must be guarded. They understand that names can cross thresholds before human bodies do. A name can enter dangerous space. A worshipper may arrive with fear, illness, guilt, barrenness, nightmares, or grief. These burdens have weight, though no one can place them on a scale. The priest receives them within a ritual frame. He may ask for offerings, and he may recite words. He may call upon a god under a particular title. He may guide the sufferer through washing, prayer, or symbolic substitution. The burden is given language. That is no small thing. Human pain often begins as confusion. You feel something pressing on your life, but you cannot see its shape. In a temple, trained speech offers shape. It tells the sufferer that misfortune is not just a private collapse. It belongs to a world where powers can be addressed, appealed to, and sometimes redirected. Perhaps this is comfort. Perhaps it is control. Perhaps, as many historians would gently remind us, it is both. There remains an active scholarly discussion about how temple specialists balance religious authority with economic and civic power. Some researchers highlight temples as commanding institutions with land, labour, and wealth. Others caution that local households, royal officials, and city assemblies also shape daily life. The priest was powerful, but not floating above society like a moon with better clothing. He worked inside networks of obligation, politics, family, and tradition. Still, his ritual knowledge gave him a distinct place. You see it in the way people approach him. They do not always cower, They may bargain, request, complain, or present offerings with practical hope. Ancient devotion was not always misty-eyed sweetness. It could be anxious, formal, stubborn, and transactional. The gods received gifts, and people asked for life to continue without too much disaster. Honestly, a modest request. The priest stands between those requests and the divine order. He is not a god. He is not fate itself. Yet he holds the language through which fate might be approached. That language includes public hymns, ceremonial titles, inherited formulas, and perhaps hidden names known only in sacred use. Such knowledge does not need to be dramatic to be powerful. It gains power because others believe the world responds to it. A quirky or fringe tidbit lives at the border of this priestly world. Later magical traditions sometimes portray secret names as passwords into the invisible realm. Some modern readers project that idea backward onto all ancient Mesopotamian religion. The truth is more delicate. Sumerian evidence does not offer a single grand doctrine of secret passwords. It offers scattered practices in which correct naming, divine titles, ritual speech, and protective formulas carry serious force. The mystery is quieter, and quieter mysteries often last longer. You watch the priest inspect a small figurine made of clay or wax. It may represent danger, illness, enemy force, or substituted body within a ritual act. It is not a toy. Though it is small enough to fit in the palm, objects like this, in many Mesopotamian ritual traditions, could stand in for larger unseen problems. A thing is made, a name is attached. Words are spoken, action follows. The invisible becomes manageable because it receives a form. There is something deeply human here. Even now, people write letters they never send. Bury objects with loved ones, save locks of hair, give names to storms, and whisper to empty rooms. Modern life pretends to be beyond ritual, then quietly invents new ones at every crisis. The Sumerian priest would probably recognize the impulse. He might find your phone alarming, but your habits less surprising. He knows people need forms. Inside the temple, the priest's forms are ancient and exact. Water washes, smoke rises, grain feeds, oil smooths, song praises, lament opens grief. Names identify powers. Hidden names protect knowledge from careless use. Each element carries the sufferer from confusion into patterned action. Pattern itself can heal, not always the body, not always the harvest, not always the wound that has already opened, but the mind, perhaps, can breathe inside pattern. A person who feels abandoned by chaos may feel held by a ritual order. The priest does not need to explain destiny as a philosopher would. He performs the possibility that destiny has structure. That performance is slow. You hear the words again, almost too low to catch. The priest does not shout at heaven. He speaks as one trained in patience. The temple around him responds with its own stillness. Walls, vessels, water, clay, and breath become part of a single action. Human life, frightened and brief, is placed before powers imagined as ancient and enduring. The hidden name remains just beyond hearing. Perhaps it belongs to a god invoked under a rare title. Perhaps it belongs to the afflicted person, wrapped inside a formula of protection. Perhaps it is not a single word at all, but a guarded way of speaking that changes the listener's place within the sacred order. The priest lowers his hands. The flame bends slightly in the air. For a moment, destiny does not feel like a wall. It feels like a locked room, and the priest stands near the door, holding a key made of memory, breath, and name. The clay tablet lies before you like a small brown field waiting for invisible weather. Its surface is quiet, but the signs pressed into it feel strangely final. Each wedge leans into the next with a discipline that outlives the hand that made it. You're close enough to see tiny ridges raised along the edges, where the reed pushed wet clay aside. A fingerprint remains near one corner, not part of the message, yet somehow more intimate than any royal title. Here, destiny becomes something you can almost touch. The Sumerians used words that scholars often translate as decrees, fates, or destined powers. These ideas did not always mean a fixed personal future in the modern sense. They belong to a wider universe of divine decisions, cosmic order, social roles, and sacred authority. A destiny might be assigned to a city, a king, a temple, a god, or a human being. It was not simply what you wanted, it was what had been set into place. A comforting thought, unless you dislike the placement. The mainstream historical evidence is rich enough to be cautious but compelling. Tablets from ancient Mesopotamia preserve myths and hymns in which gods determine destinies, grant kingship, distribute powers, and establish the order of heaven and earth. Scholars at Yale, Oxford, and the University of Chicago have examined these texts as windows into how early societies imagined authority. Divine decision was not separate from public life. It gave public life its sacred weight. You feel that weight in the tablet room? A scribe reads a line aloud, and the signs become breath again. The words speak of divine powers arranged beyond ordinary human reach. They belong to a world where the gods hold assemblies, confer honours, and set boundaries. These heavenly decisions ripple downward. A city prospers and a ruler is exalted. A household receives blessing. A sufferer seeks release. Fate moves like water through channels dug by unseen hands. But water can be redirected. That possibility makes the priest's work meaningful. If destiny were only stone, ritual would be little more than decorated despair. Yet the Sumerian world leaves room for appeal, negotiation, warning, purification, and transformation. Omens can be read, prayers can be offered, laments can be sung, names can be spoken with care. The future may be heavy, but it's not always mute. You look toward the temple courtyard, where sunlight has begun to thicken. A man waits near the entrance with dust on his feet and fear in his shoulders. Perhaps his child is ill. Perhaps his field has failed. Perhaps dreams have disturbed him for many nights. He does not possess the language to speak directly into the machinery of heaven. He brings offerings, questions, and silence. The priest brings forms. Between them lies fate, not fate as a clean line already drawn from birth to grave. That would be too neat, and history is rarely so polite. Sumerian destiny is more like a woven mat. Some strands are given by family, city, season, labour, illness, and divine decree. Other strands may be tightened, loosened, or repaired through action. Ritual does not pretend that humans command everything. It suggests they are not entirely abandoned. That suggestion is powerful. The tablet then becomes one image of fate. It can be marked while soft. It can be hardened by sun or fire. It can break, yet still preserve fragments. A name pressed into it may endure for millennia. While flesh disappears in a single generation, you can understand why clay becomes such a haunting symbol. It is earth, but obedient earth. It receives pressure and remembers. Human life does something similar. A child receives a name. A family speaks it. Officials record it. Priests may bless it. Neighbours use it. Enemies may curse it. Lovers whisper it. Mourners repeat it when the body no longer answers. Each use presses the person more deeply into the social and sacred surface of the world. The visible name becomes a public pattern of recognition. The hidden name suggests another layer of inscription. Perhaps a deeper fate lies beneath the everyday one. Perhaps the priest believes that by reaching the correct name, he can reach the softer clay below the hardened surface, not with force, but with alignment. The right divine title, the right prayer, the right ritual placement might open a small passage where destiny can be addressed. It's possible that this is less superstition than ancient psychology wrapped in sacred form. A person who receives a new ritual identity may live differently. A sufferer declared purified may feel the world shift. A king named beloved of a god may rule with greater authority because everyone agrees the title matters. A child given a protective name may be held within family hope. Yet words change behaviour. Behaviour changes outcomes. The gods may not be testable in a modern laboratory, but the power of naming moves through human communities with a remarkable force. A quirky tidbit hides in else. Omen culture. Mesopotamian scholars could study everything from eclipses to malformed births, from liver patterns to strange animal behaviour, as possible signs. To modern ears, this can sound excessive. One imagines an anxious official staring at a goat and wondering whether its sneeze has foreign policy implications. Yet the impulse is understandable in a world without weather satellites, germ theory, or economic forecasting. Signs gave uncertainty a readable surface. Omens turned fear into interpretation. That interpretive habit belongs to the same world as hidden names. Both assume reality speaks indirectly. Both assume the visible surface may conceal a deeper message. A star, a dream, a birthmark, a sickness, a royal title, a divine name. Each may point beyond itself. The trained expert is valuable because he knows how to read the pointing. The debate among scholars remains lively concerning how people experienced fate emotionally. Some argue that Mesopotamian religion was deeply pragmatic, focused on survival, prosperity, and appeasing powerful gods. Others emphasize poetry, devotion, lament, and personal piety, suggesting a more intimate religious life. The tablets hold both moods. They show fear and tenderness, calculation and awe, obedience and longing. Destiny was not only doctrine, it was lived in the stomach. You feel that as you stand beside the waiting man. His hands are rough from work, his eyes remain lowered, not from weakness, but from the exhaustion of not knowing. The priest receives his offering. A name is asked. The man gives the public one. Perhaps the priest repeats it within a formula, placing that name under divine attention. Perhaps another title is used, one meant to shield, cleanse, or redirect what has clung to him. The man hears his life spoken differently. That is the quiet turn. A destiny written in clay can be read again. A name burdened by fear can be set inside a blessing. A person known as afflicted can be addressed as protected. The ritual may not alter the river, the harvest, or the body immediately, yet it changes the pattern around the sufferer. It says that misfortune is not the only voice with naming power. There are other voices. The priest's voice, the god's tear, the family's hope, the clay's memory, the city's order, the old belief that words, properly shaped, can reach places where ordinary strength fails. Outside, the day brightens. Workers pass along the street. A donkey complains again, preserving ancient continuity with great dedication. The tablet dries slowly on its shelf. Its signs are becoming harder now, less easily changed. That is both reassuring and sad. So it is with fate. Some parts of life harden around you. Birth, loss, time, and death do not ask permission, yet other parts remain damp longer than you think. A decision, a blessing, a new role, a changed name, a remembered prayer. These compress fresh marks into the clay of becoming. The Sumerian priest seems to understand this without saying it plainly. He stands in the shaded threshold, holding a world where destiny is neither chaos nor prison. It is decree. Yes. It is burdens. Yes. But it is also text, pattern, and relationship. And if destiny can be written, perhaps under rare conditions, with clean hands and guarded words, it can be revised, not erased, not escaped, rewritten just enough for a human life to continue beneath the ancient sky. Your mind turns inward, away from tablets, courtyards, and the measured noise of the cities. There is another chamber now, smaller than a shrine and darker than a schoolroom. It is the secret room of the self, where a person carries what cannot be displayed in the street. A public name can be called across a market. It can be written on a ration tablet. It can be shouted by a parent with impressive accuracy when a child misbehaves near a water jar. But a hidden name belongs somewhere deeper. It is not necessarily a word anyone has written. It may be an identity carried beneath ordinary identity, a spiritual pressure point, or a private sign known through ritual. It may be a name assigned in danger, whispered during healing, or held back because knowledge itself can expose the body. In a world where speech acts upon reality, secrecy becomes a kind of shelter. You feel the logic of that belief slowly forming. To know someone's common name is to call them. To know their family is to place them. To know their work is to understand their usefulness. Yet to know a hidden name, in ancient imagination, might be to reach beneath those outer garments. It might allow blessing to touch the root of a life. It might also allow harm to find the same path. This is why concealed identity carries unease. The mainstream historical fact is clear enough to anchor the mystery. Mesopotamian ritual texts often show concern with correctly identifying divine powers, hostile forces, afflicted persons, and ritual substitutes. Scholars from the University of Chicago, Yale, and Oxford have studied these traditions as part of a broader system of healing, protection, and purification. Correct naming did not simply decorate the ritual, it helped define who was being addressed, what danger was present, and which power might respond. A ritual without identification is like a letter without an address. It may be earnest, but it wanders. Imagine a sufferer entering the temple with a fever that no herb has cooled. His skin smells of sweat and river water. His family stands behind him with tired faces, holding an offering they can barely spare. He gives his public name because that is what people do. Yet the priest listens as though the spoken name is only the outer gate. He may ask about dreams, omens, family history, and the day symptoms began, or the god neglected by accident. Ancient diagnosis could be spiritual, social, and symbolic at once. There is no sharp modern line here between body and fate. Illness may come from demons, divine anger, impurity, broken taboo, sorcery, or simple their misfortune shaped into sacred explanation. The categories overlap like shadows near sunset. The priest does not merely treat symptoms. He tries to locate the sufferer within a web of names, powers, mistakes, and possible remedies. The hidden name would belong to that web. Perhaps it is the name under which the person can be protected. Perhaps it is the name by which the afflicting force can be redirected away. Perhaps it is a sacred title of a god whose attention must be drawn precisely. Perhaps it is the name of a substitute object that receives danger meant for human flesh. In each case, naming does more than label, it moves relationship. That movement is subtle. A person called cursed may sink under fear. A person called cleansed may stand differently. A child called guarded may become surrounded by family vigilance. A king called chosen may command obedience from those who believe the title. Names do not have to be magical in a childish sense to be powerful. Human societies obey words every day, sometimes with tragic seriousness. Consider how a title changes a room. Servant, priest, widow, stranger, king, criminal, healer, blessed one. Each word reshapes how others look, speak, and act. In Sumer, these social labels were drawn into a cosmos crowded with divine attention. A hidden name could therefore mark not only who a person seemed to be, but where that person belonged in the unseen order. A quirky tidbit appears in later protective customs from Mesopotamia and neighbouring traditions. Parents sometimes gave children names that invoked divine guardianship, humility, or survival. Some names could sound like little prayers folded into daily life. Imagine calling a child by a name that quietly asks a god to keep him alive. It is tender, practical, and slightly heartbreaking. Ancient parenting had no illusion of safety. The cradle was never far from fear. You can sense that fear in the idea of concealment. If hostile powers could hear, recognize, or follow a person, then hiding the vulnerable core made sense. A hidden name becomes like a covered lamp, glowing but shielded from wind. The public self moves through markets, fields, and family disputes. The secret self remains guarded, perhaps held by ritual specialist or divine knowledge. There is an active debate among historians about how literally ancient Mesopotamians understood such concealed power. Some scholars describe hidden naming as part of technical ritual practice, not a widespread private doctrine. Others compare it with broader ancient Near Eastern ideas, where secret names, divine titles, and protected identities appear in many forms. The evidence invites caution. It does not invite boredom, thankfully. Caution keeps the past from becoming a costume. The Sumerians were not modern mystics wearing linen robes for atmosphere. They lived in difficult cities, counted grain, settled disputes, repaired canals, buried children, feared storms, laughed at neighbours, and worried about food. Their belief in names grew from practical life as much as from myth. To name was to organise. To organise was to survive. And survival need. Later, you step into a narrow domestic room, far from the temple's public grandeur. A lamp burns low near a wall. A woman sits beside a sleeping child, rubbing oil into small wrists. The room smells of wool blankets, milk, smoke, and crushed herbs. Outside, insects hum near standing water. She speaks softly, perhaps not in formal ritual language, but with the instinct of someone trying to keep harm away. The child has a public name, yet the mother may also carry private names in her heart. Little one, surviving one, gift returned, troublemaker. Perhaps, when daylight makes everyone honest, these names may never enter clay. They may never become theology. Still, they reveal the human truth beneath the priestly one. A person is never only one name. Each life gathers names like garments. Some are given by family, some by labour, some by love, some by injury, some by enemies, some by gods. At least in the eyes of believers, a hidden name is the garment closest to the skin. It is not always displayed because it is too intimate, too powerful, or too easily damaged. That intimacy explains the danger. To bless someone by the deep name would be to bless the root. To curse someone by that name would be to strike beneath armour. To rename someone at that level would be to shift not merely reputation, but destiny. Such an act could feel like reaching into wet clay before the surface hardens. Your breath slows as the room darkens. The child turns slightly in sleep. The mother pauses, listening. Nothing happens, which is the ordinary miracle most people forget to honour. No demon enters, no fever rises, no roof collapses. The night simply holds. Her whispered words fade into the wall and the child continues breathing. Perhaps this is where hidden names truly live. Not only in grand divine lists or guarded temple formulas, but in the human hope that there is a deeper address for the soul. A place where pain can be reached. A place where protection can be tied. A place where destiny, though heavy, remains capable of hearing. The hidden name within is not just secret, it is vulnerable. It is the part of the person ancient ritual tries to find without exposing it too much. It is the self beneath role, record, and rumour artistically. It is the self that may be wounded by unseen forces and restored by careful speech. And in the stillness of the old room, with lamp smoke curling upward like a thin dark thread, you feel how frightening and beautiful that belief once was. To be truly named was to be known, to be hidden was to be safe, to be renamed was to become possible again. The first pale line of dawn rests on the temple roof like a quiet hand. You stand near the outer court while the world changes from blue shadow into gold dust. The night insects fall silent. Birds begin testing the morning with thin, uncertain cries. Somewhere beyond the wall, a gate turns on its wooden pins with a tired squeak. The city is not awake all at once. It rises in layers, like smoke finding the ceiling. The temple wakes differently. There is no rush here, or at least there is no visible rush. Servants move with practiced calm, carrying water, cloth, grain, and vessels of oil. Their steps sound soft against packed earth. A young attendant opens a storage room, and the smell of dates, dry reeds, and old baskets drifts outward. Another lifts a lid from a jar and checks its contents by lamplight. Everything has its place. The morning ritual begins with separation from ordinary disorder. Hands are washed, vessels are cleaned, thresholds are swept, offerings are arranged in measured order. The priest does not simply appear before the god as one appears before a neighbour. He prepares himself, the space, and the objects, because sacred nearness demands a different rhythm. Slowly the air changes. Water touches skin. Oil catches light. Smoke rises from a small flame and bends toward the roof beams. Grain is poured into a bowl, each kernel striking the next with a dry whisper. A cup is set down, a cloth is unfolded. These actions are quiet, but they are not empty. They teach the body that something important is happening. The mainstream historical record confirms that Mesopotamian temples maintained daily offerings for divine statues. Historians at universities such as Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have examined ritual and administrative texts showing food, drink, garments, incense, and music as part of temple service. The divine image was treated as a living presence inside the god's house. It received care, attention, and ceremony. This may seem strange to modern ears. A statue eating breakfast is a difficult concept, even before coffee. Yet the ancient logic is not childish. The image is not merely stone or wood to those who serve it. It is a focal point where divine presence can dwell, receive, and respond. Care for the statue becomes care for the relationship between city and God. The morning offering is therefore a renewal, not a grand spectacle every time, not thunder, not spectacle, a daily act of maintenance, which may be more revealing than festival splendor. Civilization survived by repeated gestures, bread placed, water poured, names spoken, floors cleaned, records kept. The universe, apparently, requires administration before sunrise. You notice how sound guides the action. A priest murmurs a formula while lifting water. The words are low, almost hidden beneath the crackle of flame. A singer waits near the edge of the space, breathing carefully before the first note of The voice enters the air slowly, not with performance pride, but with service. It carries praise into the room like a thread drawn through cloth. Ritual words at dawn do not merely describe, they align. They align hands with offerings, offerings with divine hunger, divine attention with human need, and human fear with cosmic order. Each phrase seems to place another stone into the invisible road between earth and heaven. The speaker must know where the road begins. The god must be addressed correctly. The title must match the purpose. The name must fit the moment. You can sense the care around pronunciation. Ancient languages shift across time, and no living voice now perfectly restores the first sound of these hymns. Yet the tablets reveal that scribes cared deeply about transmitted words. They copied prayers, laments, hymns, and lexical lists with patient attention. Their work suggests that sacred speech had forms, and form mattered. A formula damaged by ignorance might not carry the same force. This is where hidden names flicker near the edge of the flames. A priest may call a god by a title associated with cleansing, wisdom, protection, fertility, judgment, or mercy. He may not use the most common name, because the common name opens only the outer door. A rarer title can lead toward a more specific power. It's rather like asking for the baker when you need bread, not the city council, though in Mesopotamia the city council might still take minutes. The right address shapes the answer. A quirky tidbit belongs to the dawn ceremony. In some Mesopotamian traditions, the divine statues were washed, clothed, ornamented, and fed with a care that resembles royal service. The god's image could receive garments and perfumes as though preparing for the day. This can feel almost domestic. Heaven wakes, apparently, and someone must make sure it looks presentable. Yet beneath the oddity lies a serious theology of presence. If the god dwells with the city, then the city must honour that dwelling every morning. Neglect is not merely impolite, it risks loosening the bond that protects civic life. The daily rite says, in effect, we remember you, so remember us, we feed your house, so keep ours from ruin, we speak your names, so do not let our names disappear. The temple dawn becomes a conversation, not a qual conversation. Of course, humans approach from below. Their bodies sweat, age, hunger, and fail. The gods endure in a different register of being. Still, ritual gives humans a grammar of approach. It lets them enter the conversation without being swallowed by silence. There is a continuing scholarly debate about how worshippers understood divine statues. Some specialists emphasize the image as a material focus of cult, shaped by ritual installation and daily care. Others stress that ancient texts can speak of divine presence in ways that do not fit simple modern categories. The statue was not just an object, but neither was it always identical to the god in a crude sense. The evidence asks you to sit with ambiguity. Ambiguity is not failure. Yeah, it's the atmosphere of ancient religion. The morning light grows stronger. You see dust rising where a servant has swept the same patch of floor for the third time. He looks bored, which is deeply reassuring. Even sacred service includes chores. The gods may receive hymns, but someone still has to deal with the dirt. In this, the ancient temple feels surprisingly close to any household. The difference is the scale of meaning. A household meal feeds a family. A temple meal sustains a cosmic relationship. A household name calls a child to breakfast. A sacred name calls divine power toward a city. A household washing removes dust from skin. A ritual washing separates the body from pollution, fear, and disorder. And every ordinary action gains a hidden depth. You stand at the threshold as the priest raises his voice slightly. The formula now becomes clearer, though still gentle. His speech passes over water, bread, oil, and incense. He does not invent as he goes. He enters inherited language, shaped by generations of mouths. Those who spoke before him are gone, yet their cadence remains. That is another kind of hidden name, the name of tradition itself. No single priest owns the words. He carries them. He is one breath in a long chain of breaths. Before him, other priests stood in dawn light, facing images, vessels, and smoke. Their hands trembled, perhaps. Their minds wandered, perhaps. Their knees complained, perhaps. Yet the rite continued, steady as the return of morning to through repetition. The city remembers its place. The listener in the court may not know every phrase. A labourer may hear only fragments. A child may grow drowsy against her mother's robe while smoke curls above them. Still, the effect gathers around everyone. The god is served. The day is opened. The names are spoken. The structure holds. For a while, nothing human holds forever. And the Sumerians knew it well. Floods broke fields. Enemies approached walls. Illness entered homes without knocking. Even temples required repair. But dawn ritual answered impermanence with repetition. It said that today, at least, order will be remade. Or today, at least, the god will be addressed. Today, or at least, human destiny will not begin in silence. You feel the warmth reach your face. The smoke thins into the brightening air. Or the offering stands complete. The priest lowers his hands, and the first full sunlight touches the courtyard stones. A hidden name may not have been heard by every ear, but the morning itself seems changed by careful speech. The city begins again, not because the world is safe, safe, because the right words have entered the dawn. Your mind rises toward a sky that feels older than any human roof. Above the flatland, the stars appear less like distant fires and more like fixed witnesses. They watch canals, cattle pens, fields, shrines, and sleeping houses. Beneath them, the earth lies dark and breathing. In that darkness, ancient imagination begins its patient work. It asks what every early society asks when silence grows too large. How did anything become what it is? The Sumerian answer is not one single story tied neatly with string. It is a gathering of traditions, hymns, fragments, divine genealogies, temple songs, and scribal arrangements. Some speak of heaven and earth, some speak of waters, birth, separation, and rule. Some move quickly, as though the listener already knows the oldest truths and needs only a reminder. Ancient stories do that. They expect you to have been paying attention for several thousand years. A mainstream historical fact steadies this scene. Sumerian and wider Mesopotamian texts preserve some of the earliest written reflections on creation and cosmic order. Scholars associated with major research centres, including Oxford, Yale, Chicago, and Pennsylvania, have studied compositions where gods establish cities, assign roles, and arrange the powers that make life possible. These texts are not modern science, but they are serious intellectual attempts to explain ordered existence. For the Sumerians, creation is not only making matter, it is giving place. A river must have its course, a city must have its patron, a field must belong to cultivation, a human must belong to a household, a task, a lineage, and the attention of gods. Even divine powers must have offices and boundaries. The world becomes livable when every force receives a name, a station, and a relationship to other forces. You feel that ordering in the still air. A name falls upon the dark like a lamp being lit. The marsh is not merely wet ground, it becomes a region of reeds, fish, birds, clay, and hidden danger. The storm is not merely noise, it becomes a power with direction and character. The morning star is not only brightness, it becomes presence, omen, and story. The gods name the world by defining how it behaves. This is why divine speech feels so weighty. When humans name things, they're often recognizing what already presses against them. When gods name things, ancient myth imagines them assigning reality its structure. They do not label a finished world, they organize a world that is becoming meaningful. That distinction carries quiet force. You stand at the edge of a half-formed landscape in the mind's eye. Water glints beneath a low moon. Mud pulls at your feet. The smell is rich, green, and animal. Reeds whisper against one another, and somewhere a bird lifts suddenly from the shallows. Nothing here feels empty. It feels unnamed, which is different. The unnamed waits. In Sumerian thought, the divine assembly could determine destinies. The gods could allocate powers, confirm kingship, and define the character of cities and beings. A thing's destiny was not merely the next event in its life, it was its assigned nature, role, and path inside the larger order. To receive a destiny was to become legible within creation. A temple city could receive such legibility. Its god, its rites, its festivals, its fields, and its name together formed a sacred identity. The city did not just exist because people built walls there. It existed because it had been placed within divine order. The human settlement became a cosmic address. If you think urban planning meetings are intense now, imagine adding heaven to the agenda. Yet the humour fades quickly, because to be without a name, or without a rightful place, is frightening. A nameless force cannot be negotiated with easily. A nameless grief seems endless. A nameless illness prowls without a handle. A nameless person can disappear without witness. Creation by naming gives handles to existence. It lets human beings grasp the edge of what would otherwise overwhelm them. This is not primitive confusion. It is a profound response to fragility. A quirky fringe tidbit circles around the god lists and creation traditions. Some modern readers have imagined that the Sumerian gods were memories of ancient teachers from a vanished civilization. Serious scholars generally treat that as speculation unsupported by the tablets. Still, the fascination tells us something about the texts themselves. They present divine knowledge as something organized, transmitted, and older than ordinary human invention. That naturally invites wonder, even when the wilder answers outrun the evidence. Wonder is allowed. Carelessness is less charming. There is an open, scholarly debate about how Sumerian creation themes relate to later Akkadian, Babylonian, and broader Near Eastern traditions. Some researchers emphasize continuity, showing how older motifs were preserved and transformed. Others stress the local character of Sumerian cities, where each cult center shaped its own sacred memory. The result is not a single creation doctrine, but a landscape of related ideas. The past offers a constellation, not a traffic sign. You look again at the stars. A constellation is a fitting image. Humans connect points of light and call the pattern a lion, a plough, a hunter, a goddess, a fate. The stars are there, but the names give them the story. In the same way, the ancient world held rivers, storms, birth, death, grain, kings, and dreams. Naming turned them into a cosmos. The priest standing beneath such a sky inherits that creative logic. He cannot create rivers, he cannot command stars, he cannot stop death from loving its work too much. But he can speak within a tradition where divine names arrange reality. By using the proper name, he participates in the same ordering power on a smaller scale. He does not become creator, he becomes servant of creation's grammar. That grammar reaches human destiny. If the gods name the world into order, then human names also carry placement. A person's public name places them among family and city. A ritual name may place them under protection. A royal name places a ruler inside divine favour. A healing formula may rename an afflicted body as cleansed, guarded, or released. Each naming echoes the original pattern, where existence becomes stable through spoken order. You sense how delicate this must have felt. A wrong name might misplace a prayer, a forgotten name might weaken memory, a stolen name might disturb authority, a hidden name might preserve the deepest connection between a person and the order that sustains them. The priest's caution is not random fear. It belongs to a world where words continue the work of creation. Slowly the landscape gains shape. The marsh becomes field, the field becomes city land, the city land becomes temple property, the temple becomes divine house, the divine house becomes the place where human voices address powers whose names are older than the walls. You can almost watch reality layering itself, one title at a time. This is what naming does. It builds upward from man. A child born in such a world does not arrive into emptiness. The child enters a woven language of gods, kinship, labour, omens, songs, debts, offerings, and hopes. The family name, the given name, the protective prayer, and perhaps the hidden ritual name all fold around the newborn like cloth. Destiny begins not as a straight road, but as a circle of voices. Some voices bless, some command, some fear, some remember, and behind them, in the oldest mythic distance, the gods continue naming the world. They set powers in motion, grant offices, assign destinies, and make reality thinkable. Their names fill tablets, songs, and temple rooms. Their titles multiply because the world itself is too complex for a single address. You breathe in the cool scent of night water. The stars remain above you, remote and patient. The land below is no longer mute. It has been called into meaning by ancient voices, and those voices continue in every careful ritual phrase. The hidden name of a person belongs to this same sacred architecture. It is not an isolated charm or a theatrical secret. It is a small echo of creation itself. To name is to draw a boundary. To name is to invite presence. To name is to say, this thing has a place in the order. And perhaps, when a Sumerian priest guarded a hidden name, he was guarding the fragile point where a human life touched the first pattern of the world. The water grows quiet in your thoughts, and a different presence rises from its dark surface. He is not loud. He does not stride through the imagination with the brittle pride of a conquering king. Enki comes more softly, as a god of deep waters, wisdom, craft, fertility, cleverness, and hidden design. His realm is not only the visible river that glitters under the sun, it is the sweet underground water, the unseen source beneath wells, marshes, canals, and fields. That already tells you something. In Sumerian belief, true knowledge often lies below the surface. The field drinks from what is hidden. The city survives because water moves where feet cannot follow. Life rises from depths that ordinary eyes never see. Enki fits that world beautifully, and perhaps a little suspiciously. He is generous, yes, but also cunning. The wise helper in ancient stories is rarely simple. That would be inconvenient for storytellers, and very disappointing for priests. A mainstream historical fact stands firmly here. Sumerian texts identify Enki as a major god associated with wisdom, freshwater, creation, crafts, and the city of Eridu. Scholars at institutions such as Oxford, Yale, and the University of Chicago have studied myths in which Enki preserves order, grants knowledge, solves crises, and shapes human beginnings. His importance reaches across many Mesopotamian traditions. You picture Eridu, old and low near the southern marshes. This air is damp there, touched by reeds, fish, mud, and salt wind from distant waters. The horizon lies wide and uncertain. Boats move through channels as if gliding through the veins of the earth. The Temple of Enki rises from this watery landscape, not like a fortress, but like a statement of balance between mud and sky. The god who belongs here understands thresholds. Fresh water meets salt marsh, land meets river, human craft meets divine pattern, spoken knowledge meets guarded knowledge. Enki is often imagined near the sources of culture itself, where skills and institutions are not random human inventions but powers distributed from the divine world. He stands close to the machinery that makes civilization possible. Not machinery of metal, machinery of role, order, skill, and name. In myths, Enki can be both benefactor and trickster. He protects life, arranges creation, and sometimes outwits disaster through intelligence rather than force. That matters for hidden names because his wisdom is not merely information, it is effective knowledge. It does something. It changes outcomes. It opens passages that strength cannot force. You sense that in the water. A canal does not defeat a river by shouting at it. It guides flow. It cuts a path. It persuades movement through form. Enki's wisdom feels similar. It does not always smash destiny. It redirects it. A hidden name, spoken with understanding, could be imagined as such a channel. It gives fate another route. The temple priest who invokes Enki is not merely asking for clever thoughts. He asks for access to deep order. He asks for the knowledge beneath appearances, the exact phrase, the proper title, the concealed route by which danger can be turned aside. In healing and purification traditions, the god of wisdom becomes a natural ally. When illness, curse, or confusion arrives like muddy floodwater, wisdom must find the channel. There is something soothing about this. You stand by a pool in the temple court, and the surface holds the morning sky. The water looks still, but small insects stir it with rings of movement. Beneath that stillness lies depth, reflection, and danger if one leans too far. It is a gentle image until you remember that all deep things keep secrets. Enki's whisper is the whisper of depths. A quirky tidbit belongs to the stories surrounding him. In several traditions, Enki solves divine problems with tactics that feel surprisingly human. He negotiates, tricks, advises, delays, intoxicates, or reveals at just the correct moment. One imagines the other god sighing whenever he smiles. The wise god is useful, certainly, but one suspects he has already read the small print of existence. This cleverness gives his knowledge a double edge. Hidden names may protect, but hidden knowledge can also unsettle hierarchy. Those who know more than others can act in ways others cannot predict. In temple culture, this makes guarded speech both sacred and political. A priest's knowledge of formulas, titles, and ritual names is not only devotional, it gives him practical authority over fear. People come to the one who knows. They come when ordinary explanations pall. They come when a dream clings to the skin all morning. They come when a child wakes crying at the same hour each night. They come when animals die without clear cause, or when a house feels wrong after a death. The priest may not understand disease as a modern physician would, but he understands symbolic crisis. He names the disorder, and that naming begins to contain it. Enki's wisdom hovers over such moments. There is an open scholarly debate about how myths of Enki should be interpreted. Some researchers read them as theological reflections on divine wisdom and cosmic order. Others emphasize their social meaning, showing how they encode irrigation, craftsmanship, kingship, sexuality, and temple knowledge. Still others noted to their playful and ironic qualities, because ancient sacred literature was not allergic to wit. The god remains richly layered. That layered quality suits secret naming. A single public name is useful, but a layered name is potent. Enki may be called by titles connected to the deep waters, wisdom, creation, lordship, or craft. Each title draws forth a different aspect. A priest choosing among them does not merely decorate prayer, he selects a route through divine identity. The route matters. Imagine a locked house with many doors. One door opens into a kitchen, one into a storehouse, one into a shrine, one into a dark room where no guest is meant to stand. House is one house. Yet the door you choose changes what becomes possible. Divine names work like doors in Sumerian ritual thought. They approach the god through function, memory, and sacred role. A hidden name would be an inner door. Not for casual visitors, not for market gossip, not for the loud fellow who argues with fish sellers before sunrise. It belongs to trained approach, to guarded need, to the moment when ordinary names have not been enough. You feel the cool air near the water basin. A priest bends close, perhaps speaking words that ask Enki to loosen a binding or cleanse a pollution. His voice is low, almost swallowed by the chamber. The water receives the sound and carries it nowhere visible. That is the point. The hidden work happens where the eye cannot follow. This is not failure of evidence. It is the nature of the idea. The Sumerian world often imagines power moving through unseen channels. Divine decrees shape visible life. Omens reveal hidden intentions. Dreams carry messages. Ritual substitutions transfer danger. Names open relationships. Enki, lord of wisdom and deep waters, gathers these invisible movements into one divine personality. He is the god of what lies beneath. Beneath the field, water. Beneath the craft, knowledge. Beneath the ritual, formula. Beneath the public name, hidden identity. Beneath the visible destiny, perhaps another current. You begin to understand why priests would look toward such a god when confronting human fate. A suffering person may appear trapped by the circumstance. The illness has a name, the family has fear, the omen has been read, the future feels narrow, but Enki's wisdom suggests that reality may contain concealed pathways. Not every door is on the front wall. Some are underwater. This is where the belief becomes most intimate. Hidden names are not merely grand secrets stored in temple shelves. They are imagined pathways into the unseen construction of a life. To know the name is to find the channel. To speak it correctly is to let the water move. To guard it is to protect the channel from those who would poison it. Outside, the marsh wind moves through reeds. The sound is soft, repetitive, almost like whispered speech. It does not explain itself. It does not need to. Enki's presence remains there, in the damp edge between earth and depth, in the old confidence that wisdom is not always bright. Sometimes wisdom is dark water, patient and cold, carrying the roots of the world. Perhaps destiny too has roots. Perhaps a human life grows from places unseen by the person living it. Family, city, divine decree, accident, memory, fear, and hope all sink downward, tangled and thirsty. The priest who knows Enki's names believes he can speak toward those roots, can pour ritual water there. He can loosen what has tightened. He can guide what has flooded. Not perfectly, never completely, but enough, perhaps, to let a life breathe again. A distant song begins to gather in the air, bright as metal under morning light. It belongs to Inanna, goddess of love, war, desire, splendour, ambition, and terrible motion. She is not a quiet presence, even when the narration slows. Her name carries the feeling of drums heard from another street. She moves through Sumerian literature with a force that refuses to sit neatly in any one category. She can be radiant, generous, dangerous, wounded, triumphant, and astonishingly determined. A complicated goddess, then, very on brand for humanity. You feel her city before you fully see it. Uruk stretches beneath the sky, its walls and sacred precincts alive with heat. The temple space is dedicated to her shimmer with offerings, song, and careful service. Fragrant smoke lifts from bowls. Fine cloth moves in the hands of attendants. Gold catches light in brief flashes, like small suns trapped in human rooms. Inanna's presence changes the atmosphere. Where Enki's wisdom settles into deep water, Inanna's power arrives like a wind crossing banners. She is desire that builds cities and breaks households. She is battle fury and ceremonial beauty. She is the strange force that makes people reach beyond their assigned place. Sometimes toward greatness, sometimes toward ruin. That is why her stories matter to hidden names. A mainstream historical fact provides the firm ground. Sumerian hymns and myths present Inanna as one of the most important deities of ancient Mesopotamia, closely associated with Uruk and later linked with the Akkadian Ishtar. Scholars from Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have studied compositions in which she receives praise, enters conflict, descends into danger, and claims divine powers. Her mythology reveals how sacred authority could be imagined as transferable, contested, and embodied. Transferable authority is the key. In one famous Sumerian tradition, Inanna obtains sacred powers from Enki. These powers are often described by scholars as divine ordinances, cultural offices, or civilizing capacities. They include aspects of kingship, priesthood, truth, falsehood, warfare, music, sexuality, judgment, craft, lamentation, and social order. The list feels overwhelming, almost like someone emptying the entire cabinet of civilization onto the floor, which, in mythic terms, is rather the point. Inanna travels to Enki's city, receives these powers, and brings them back toward Uruk. The story is lively, strange, and filled with movement. There is feasting. There is drinking. There is a transfer of sacred things that should perhaps have involved clearer paperwork. Then comes pursuit, resistance, and eventual triumph. The powers reach her city, and Uruk becomes enriched by them. What has moved? Not ordinary objects, exactly. These powers are not pots, sheep, or jars of oil. They are the invisible structures that make society what it is. They are roles, capacities, arts, dangers, honours, and institutions. They are the named components of civilized life. To possess them is to possess the arrangement through which a city understands itself. You can feel the importance of naming here. A power must be named before it can be claimed. Kingship, priesthood, lamentation, battle, counsel, desire, music, judgment. Each named force becomes distinct enough to travel in the story. The myth imagines civilization as a set of divine powers that can be gathered, guarded, transferred, and installed. Names make the transfer possible. Without names, the powers dissolve into vague greatness. With names, they become countable and portable, at least within sacred imagination. Inanna does not simply become more impressive, She acquires a structured collection of world-shaping capacities. Her identity expands because named powers now belong to her. That is a profound image of destiny. If a person receives a new named power, the person changes. If a city receives a new sacred office, the city changes. If a ruler receives a divine title, his authority changes. If a sufferer receives a ritual name of cleansing, the sufferer changes. The myth magnifies this logic on a divine scale. It shows identity not as a sealed box, but as something shaped by the powers attached to it. A quirky tidbit clings to the story of Inanna and Enki. The scene of divine drinking has amused many modern readers, because cosmic order appears to shift after a banquet. One might gently observe that important decisions made after too much beer remain a risky tradition, yet the humour does not weaken the myth. It makes the gods strangely social, and therefore strangely close. The sacred powers do not move through abstract theory. They move through encounter. Inanna's journey also reveals the anxiety of possession. Once powers have been given, can they be taken back? Once a name has been spoken, can it be unspoken? Once authority has crossed from one hand to another, can the old order truly restore itself? The story seems to linger in that tension. Sacred transfer is thrilling because it is not entirely safe. The same tension surrounds hidden names. A name kept secret is stable because it has not entered public circulation. A name spoken in ritual crosses a boundary. It moves from concealment into action. That movement may heal, protect, empower, or expose. The moment of speech is therefore dangerous and creative at once. You stand in imagination beside the river route from Eridu to Uruk. The boat moves through reeds and brown channels, carrying invisible treasures. The water smells of fish, wet rope, and sun-warmed mud. Men push with poles. Birds scatter ahead. Somewhere within the mythic cargo are the powers by which people sing, judge, marry, fight, rule, grieve, seduce, deceive, and build. A civilization floats past you like a secret packed into a reed boat. That image is hard to forget. There is an open scholarly debate about the meaning of the sacred powers in this myth. Some researchers read them as symbols of social institutions and cultural technologies. Others view them as theological expressions of divine authority distributed across cities. Some emphasize the rivalry between cult centers, especially Eridu and Uruk. The clay does not flatten itself into one answer. It lets several truths breathe at once. Several truths are often more honest. Inanna herself resists simplification. She is not merely a goddess of beauty. Though she can be beautiful, she is not merely a war goddess. Though battle belongs to her, she is not merely a symbol of political ambition. Though power follows her, like a shadow. She is a divine figure through whom the Sumerians explored transformation, risk, and the unsettling hunger to become more. That hunger lives inside naming. A public title can enlarge a life. A sacred name can open a role. A hidden name can alter how destiny recognizes the person beneath the visible surface. Inanna's stolen or granted powers show this on a scale bright enough for myth. When named powers move, identity is rewritten. You hear music from the temple precinct. A drum sounds slowly. A singer begins a hymn. The voice praises Inanna with titles that gleam and cut. Each title is an approach, a facet, a small door into an overwhelming presence. The goddess is not reduced by her names. She multiplies through them. To know many names is to know that power itself has many faces. The priest who serves such a goddess must be careful. Calling upon her as radiant patron is not the same as calling upon her as battle force. Invoking desire is not the same as invoking judgment. The name chosen directs the relationship. It tells the divine presence which face is being approached, and tells the human community what kind of power is being welcomed. That is not mere poetry. It is ritual precision. Now the idea of destiny shifts again. A human life may not be governed only by what was first decreed. It may also be shaped by what is acquired, bestowed, claimed, lost, or renamed. Inanna's myth whispers that sacred power can move. If power can move, then identity can change. If identity can change, then fate may not be as still as fear imagines. You let the thought settle softly. The boat nears Uruk. The city waits in heat and expectation. The powers arrive as names, offices, arts, and dangers. They do not make life peaceful. They make life full. Music and warfare, wisdom and deceit, love and lamentation, kingship and ruin all enter the city's destiny together. Civilization is not innocence. It is intensity organised by names, and in the quiet chambers where priests guard sacred speech, the lesson remains. To name a power is to make it available. To hide a name is to keep a power from careless hands. To transfer a name is to change the destiny of the one who receives it. Inanna's bright, unsettling journey shows the old belief in motion. Fate can be carried. Power can be claimed. A name can travel from one world to another and arrive with enough force to remake a city. The air grows heavier now, as though the temple walls have drawn closer around you. Night has returned, but not peacefully. It presses against doors, settles in corners, and gathers beneath beds where frightened children refuse to look. A lamp burns in a shallow bowl, its small flame wavering whenever someone moves. The room smells of wool, sweat, bitter herbs, and old smoke trapped in the roof beams. Outside, a dog cries once, then falls silent. Someone is ill. You see a figure lying on a woven mat, wrapped in cloth despite the heat. His breathing is uneven. His family sits nearby, whispering because loud words feel dangerous. A bowl of water waits on the floor. Beside it are threads, flour, oil, small plants, and a little shaped object of clay. Nothing here feels random. Each item is waiting to become part of speech. This is where naming becomes urgent. In Sumerian and wider Mesopotamian healing traditions, misfortune could be imagined as something with agency. Illness might be linked with divine anger, hostile spirits, broken ritual boundaries and witchcraft, impurity, or a demon that had attached itself to the sufferer. The world of sickness was not merely biological in ancient thought. It was moral, spiritual, social, and cosmic at once. Modern medicine would explain fever differently. The fear, however, is familiar. A mainstream historical fact steadies the chamber. Mesopotamian ritual texts preserve incantations and healing procedures in which specialists identify afflicting forces, invoke protective gods, and use symbolic actions to remove danger. Scholars from Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and other major research centres have studied these materials as evidence of complex medical and magical practice. The ancient healer might combine herbs, diagnosis, prayer, and ritual speech within one continuous act. That combination is important. The priest or exorcist does not always separate remedy from meaning. A plant may soothe the body, water may cleanse the skin, an incantation may address the unseen cause. A figurine may receive what must leave the sufferer. A name may locate the danger. In such a system, healing begins when chaos is given a shape. The specialist leans near the sick man. He listens to the breathing. He watches the eyes. He asks what dreams have come, what day the illness began, what offerings have been missed, what words were spoken in anger. This is not modern clinical method, yet it is still a search for pattern. The sufferer's life is being read. His body has become a tablet of heat, trembling, odour, silence, and sign. The affliction must be named. If a demon is suspected, its identity matters. If divine displeasure is feared, the offended power must be approached. If impurity clings, it must be separated and sent away. If a curse has found the person, the curse must be addressed as something that can be broken, redirected, or returned. Vague terror is too large to hold. Named terror becomes narrower. Not harmless, narrower. A quirky tidbit often surprises modern listeners. Some Mesopotamian healing rituals use substitute objects, including figurines, knots, threads, or bits of material that could stand in for a person or danger. The idea can sound theatrical, almost like ancient stagecraft with serious faces. Yet the symbolism is powerful. If suffering can be transferred into a substitute, then the body may be released from what has seized it. The priest takes the clay figure. It is small, rough, and faintly damp. Perhaps it represents the evil force. Perhaps it represents a body that will receive the sickness. The exact logic varies across rituals, but the emotional movement is clear. The unseen problem is pulled into view. It becomes touchable. It can be handled, named, bound, buried, burned, washed away, or sent into running water. That is an astonishing human invention. Pain becomes object. Fear becomes procedure. Destiny becomes negotiable for one trembling tweet. You hear the specialist speak in a low voice. The words gather around the sick man, the clay figure, and the bowl of water. He calls upon a god under a protective title. He may command the hostile force to depart. He may name the sufferer as one who is cleansed, guarded, or returned to life. Each phrase tries to alter relationship. The illness is no longer the only speaker in the room. The family listens as if breath of the self depends on syllables. Yes, perhaps it does. When people are afraid, language can either deepen terror or contain it. A calm ritual voice gives the family a path to follow. Sit here, hold this, wash now, listen, repeat, wait. The body may still suffer, but this room has changed. Helpless watching becomes shared action. That may not cure every fever. It can still keep despair from swallowing the night. There is an open scholarly debate about how to classify these healing practices. Some researchers separate medicine, magic, and religion for analysis. Others caution that ancient Mesopotamians did not divide the world so neatly. A treatment could be practical and sacred. At once, a ritual could soothe the mind and also aim to influence divine powers. The categories overlap, which is inconvenient and wonderfully human. The hidden name appears here with special force. If the hostile presence can recognize the sufferer, then concealment protects. If the healing god must recognize the sufferer, then the correct ritual name opens protection. If the sufferer is renamed within the rite, then the affliction may lose its claim. The person lying on the mat is not merely a patient, he is being repositioned in the unseen order. The priest might speak as though the sickness has mistaken its target. He might declare that the evil belongs elsewhere. He might attach danger to the clay figure instead. He might place the human name under the guardianship of a divine name stronger than the force attacking it. In that moment, naming becomes a contest. Which name will define the person? Sick one, cursed one, abandoned one, or protected one? The answer matters. A life often follows the strongest name placed upon it. Not always by magic, and not always by choice. Communities can imprison people in names. Families can rescue them with names. Ritual can offer a counter name when fear has become too loud. The Sumerian priest, working in smoke and lamplight, may have understood this through myth rather than psychology, but the insight remains sharp. The sick man stirs, a hand grips the edge of the mat, the family leans forward, no miracle has to burst through the roof. The scene is quieter than that. The specialist dips fingers into water and touches the man's skin. The water is cool and the man exhales. A knot is tied. A phrase is spoken. The clay figure is lifted away from the body. The danger has somewhere else to go. This is the strange mercy of symbolic action. It gives misfortune an exit. The house no longer feels sealed around the sufferer. A door has been opened, not in wood, but in meaning. Through that door, illness, curse, demon, or dread may be commanded to leave. Outside, the dark canal waits. In some rituals, polluted materials could be removed from the living space, discarded, buried, burned, or carried away by water. Such acts completed the separation. The danger was no longer simply discussed. It was physically displaced. The body, the room, and the family could begin to feel different. Perhaps the fever breaks. Perhaps it does not. Ancient ritual never guaranteed safety, because ancient people were not fools. They saw death often. They knew prayers failed. They knew children did not always wake. Yet they kept speaking, washing, binding, naming, and renaming. That persistence is not stupidity. It is courage wearing ritual clothing. The lamp flickers lower. The priest's voice softens. The family grows still. The sick man's public name has been placed inside a protective frame, and the hostile name has been pushed outward. For a little while, destiny is no longer a single sentence. It is a struggle of names in a room full of breath. You feel the unease of it, but also its tenderness. To confront misfortune by naming it is to refuse complete surrender. To rename the sufferer is to offer the possibility of return. To hide the vulnerable self from hostile forces is to admit how precious that self is. The night remains dark, but the darkness has been addressed. The palace appears at the edge of sacred space, heavy with sunlight and guarded silence. Its walls are broader than a household wall, its doorways deeper, its rooms arranged to turn power into architecture. You feel the temperature drop as you pass from the open court into shade. The air smells of cedar beams, wool hangings, oil, and the faint dryness of stored grain. So somewhere, bronze fittings catch a narrow blade of light. Here, a name does not merely identify a ruler. It builds him. A king in ancient Sumer does not stand alone as a strong body with a sharp command. He is presented through titles, inscriptions, rituals, victories, foundations, offerings, and divine favour. His public identity is crafted as carefully as a temple vessel. The ordinary man may have a family name, a childhood voice, perhaps even an embarrassing nickname held hostage by relatives. The king receives something heavier. He receives a sacred role. A mainstream historical fact anchors this royal world. Sumerian rulers left inscriptions on bricks, statues, foundation objects, cones, and tablets, often naming themselves as servants, chosen ones, builders, or beloved of particular gods. Scholars from Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have studied these royal inscriptions as evidence for kingship, temple building, warfare, and religious legitimacy. The ruler's name appears almost always inside a relationship with divine authority. That relationship is never accidental. A king may call himself mighty, but strength alone is not enough. He may claim to have built a temple for a god, restored a sanctuary, dug a canal, defeated enemies, or brought justice to the land. Each action becomes part of the royal name's aura. The ruler is not simply remembered by what he's called, he is remembered by what his name is made to carry. You stand before a mud brick stamped with signs. The brick is humble, almost plain, yet its inscription reaches for permanence. It tells who ordered the building and which god received the work. One brick among thousands bears the king's name like a seed sealed into the wall. The labourers who shaped and carried it are unnamed. Of course, history enjoys that cruel little trick. Yet the ruler's name remains visible, pressed into the sacred body of the city. The king becomes embedded in temple memory. This is why royal naming matters for destiny. A king may be born into one household, but enthronement gives him another identity. He becomes shepherd of the people, builder for the gods, protector of order, or chosen servant of a divine patron. These titles are not casual praise. They help persuade the city that his rule belongs inside cosmic structure. Power needs grammar. Without grammar, power is just one person ordering others around, which humans have tried often enough with mixed reviews. With divine grammar, command becomes duty, conquest becomes restoration, temple building becomes piety, and obedience becomes participation in sacred order. The ruler's name is the hinge on which that transformation turns. You hear a court scribe read an inscription aloud. The king's name enters the chamber, followed by titles and offerings. The voice is formal, steady, and almost impersonal. That is appropriate. The inscription is not gossip. It is a public spell of legitimacy. Although scholars might prefer a less dramatic phrase at conferences, it declares that this person, under this name, has acted for this god, in this city, for this order. The words place the king where fate can recognize him as. A quirky tidbit from ancient royal practice is that some rulers seemed almost obsessed with having their names buried in foundations. Foundation deposits could be hidden under buildings, where no ordinary eye would see them. Imagine writing your name for people who are not born yet, then hiding it under the floor. It is humble and arrogant at the same time, a very royal combination. Yet the hidden inscription reveals a deeper logic. A visible inscription persuades the living, a buried inscription addresses the future, the god, and the building itself. It says, beneath your feet, beneath public sight. My name supports this sacred structure. That is not merely commemoration, it is a form of presence. The king's name continues to act after his body is dust. Names can outlive bone. The Sumerian ruler knows this, or at least his scribes know it for him. In a world where memory protects existence, erasure is terrifying. To remove a name from a monument is not only vandalism, it is an attack on the person's place in history, perhaps even in the divine order. The named king remains part of the city's story. The erased king drifts toward darkness. There is an open debate among historians about how ordinary people experienced royal ideology. Some researchers argue that divine kingship and royal titles deeply shaped public imagination. Others suggest that many people encountered kingship more practically through labour duties, taxes, warfare, and local officials. Both views may be true at different levels. The king's name sounded sacred in inscriptions, but someone still had to haul bricks in the sun. Ancient grandeur always has sawbacks underneath it. You walk into a courtyard where workers shape clay for a new building project. Their hands are cracked, their shoulders shine with sweat. A foreman calls instructions, a scribe marks quantities. Nearby, a priest watches the alignment of offerings for the dedication. The king is absent in body, yet his name is everywhere. It rides on orders, tablets, seals, and whispered complaints. That absence is important. Royal naming allows the king to be present where he is not physically standing. His name moves faster than his feet. It authorizes labor, collects goods, marks land, and dedicates sacred work. The name becomes administrative power, ritual power, and memory power at once. For the ruler, destiny is enlarged by repetition. Every inscription says, he belongs here. Every temple brick says, the gods know him. Every title says, his rule has meaning beyond appetite. But royal names also reveal anxiety. Why repeat so much unless memory is fragile? Why carve, stamp, bury, and proclaim unless forgetting is always near. The king's sacred titles are armour against disappearance. They protect him from becoming merely another dead man under the dust. You sense the connection to hidden names. A throne name or sacred title is not hidden in the same way as a secret healing name, yet both reshape identity. The ruler's ordinary life is covered by a constructed name of authority. He becomes what the title declares. If the city accepts the title, destiny changes around him. People kneel, labour, sing, fear, and obey because words have reorganized reality. A ruler named servant of a god may command as more than himself. A ruler named builder may enter divine memory through brick. A ruler named beloved may wrap ambition and affection from heaven. The palace grows quiet as the sun lowers. On one wall, a relief or carved object catches the reddish light. It may show a ruler larger than attendants, facing a deity, receiving a sign of approval, or presenting a structure. Scale itself becomes a title in stone. The king is made larger because his role is larger. Art repeats what language declares. Yet the human being inside the royal name remains mortal. He hungers. He fears revolt. He grows ill. He ages. He may wake at night listening for footsteps in corridors. Sacred titles cannot soften every pillow, but they can turn a temporary life into a durable identity, one that continues through inscriptions and temple memory. This is the royal version of destiny rewritten. A child is born with a name, a man gains office, a ruler receives titles. His words enter clay, brick, and ceremony. His identity expands beyond the body that must someday fail. The gods are invoked as witnesses, and the city is asked to believe. For a while, it does. You stand near the foundation of a temple wall, where a hidden deposit rests in darkness below the floor. The king's name lies there, unseen but active, sleeping inside architecture. Above it, priests will chant, workers will pass, worshippers will bow, and generations will forget who first shaped the brick. The buried name waits. It has one quiet task: to keep a mortal ruler from vanishing completely. The scribe sits in a narrow room where afternoon light falls across clay like still water. His reed stylus rests between his fingers, stained at the tip from long use. Before him, a tablet waits in its damp patience. Around him are baskets of clay, sealed jars, broken practice tablets, and shelves where older records sleep in rows. The room smells of dust, river mud, dried reeds, and the faint waxy smoke of a lamp not yet needed. He does not look powerful. That is the first deception. The scribe owns no army. He does not command thunder. He does not stand before the divine image with priestly solemnity. He may be tired, underpaid, annoyed by students, and secretly hoping the next delivery of clay is not full of grit. Yet with one careful hand he can preserve a name, miscopy a name, omit a name, or place a name where future memory will find it. That is quiet authority. A mainstream historical fact supports the scene. Mesopotamian scribes were trained in tablet houses, where they learned signs, lists, calculations, literary compositions, and administrative formats. Scholars from Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have studied school tablets and archives that reveal a demanding scribal culture. Writing was not casual decoration. It was a specialized skill that helped manage temples, palaces, trade, law, ritual, and memory. To write was to hold a gate. You watch his hand move, the stylus presses, lifts, turns, and presses again. Each mark is small, but the act is enormous. A person who cannot write must trust the person who can. A worker's ration depends on signs. A temple delivery depends on signs. A royal dedication depends on signs. A prayer copied for ritual use depends on signs. The scribe stands between speech and permanence. Someone says a name, the scribe hears it, shapes it into signs and gives it a body made of clay. That body may survive a season, a generation, or 4,000 years in the ground. It may also crack by evening if dropped by a careless apprentice. History is majestic, yes, but it is also very vulnerable to clumsy hands. The scribe knows this. He smooths the tablet edge with his thumb. He checks a line. He pauses over a name that might belong to a worker, a priest, a god, or a donor. A mistake here is not merely a smudge. It may affect payment, duty, offering, or memory. It may distort a ritual text. It may confuse a future reader. It may erase a person from a record that would have been their only surviving trace. There is a moral weight in the stylus. Modern eyes often pass over lists of names quickly, hunting for kings and disasters, yet the names in administrative tablets are sometimes the closest we come to ordinary lives. A woman receiving wool, a brewer delivering jars, a shepherd responsible for animals, a child included in a ration group. The clay does not tell their whole story, but it refuses total disappearance. That refusal matters. To be written is to be granted a fragile afterlife in matter, not a warm afterlife, perhaps not one with music or reunion, just the stubborn fact of having been there. A name survives because a scribe bent over wet clay and bothered to press the signs. There is a quirky tidbit hiding in scribal life. Some school tablets preserve student mistakes, teacher corrections, awkward repetitions, and exercises copied with the ancient equivalent of exhausted resentment. You can almost sense a young learner thinking that the sign list will never end. It is oddly comforting. The old world contains homework, and homework has always been a small demon with excellent stamina. Still, the training created guardians of memory. A scribe learned not only how to write words, but how to arrange the world. Lexical lists grouped animals, professions, stones, plants, cities, gods, and objects. These lists were tools of education, yet they were also mental architecture. They taught students that reality could be ordered through signs. The named world became a world one could store, retrieve, compare, and transmit. That kind of order shapes destiny. If a name enters the archive, it may travel beyond the body. If a name is absent, the person may vanish from institutional sight. If a divine title is copied faithfully, a ritual can continue. If the title is damaged or misunderstood, sacred speech becomes uncertain. The scribe does not rewrite fate by chanting over a flame. He rewrites fate by determining what remains available to memory. Memory is a second kind of life. There is an open, scholarly debate about how much creativity scribes had within inherited traditions. Some researchers emphasize strict copying and school discipline, because many tablets reproduce older forms. Others point to variation, adaptation, commodity, and local practice, suggesting that scribes were not merely machines with reed styluses. The evidence shows both loyalty and movement. Tradition breathes through repetition, but it also changes while pretending not to. That is delightfully fluent. You see the scribe compare two tablets. One is older, chipped at the edge. Another is fresh, moist, and darker in colour. He scans the older signs, then copies them. His lips move slightly as he reads. A divine name appears, then a title, then a phrase of praise. His teacher once taught him the proper sequence. His own hand now carries it forward. A hidden name could survive only through such careful chains. If it was never written, it depended on memory alone. If it was written, it depended on restricted access, trained reading, and preservation. Either way, secrecy did not mean carelessness. It required discipline. A hidden name was not simply hidden under a blanket of mystery. It was guarded through systems of learning, office, habit, and silence. The scribe participates in that guarding. He may copy a ritual tablet meant only for specialists. He may write a god's lesser-known title in a list. He may preserve a formula used when sickness enters a household. He may record an offering made under a person's name, placing that person within divine attention. He may also erase, scrape, correct, or replace. His stylus can protect and injure. The room becomes very still. Outside, Bamboa. The city continues with its appetites. Bread is baked, cattle are driven, water is drawn. Neighbours argue over matters that are surely important to them and possibly exhausting to everyone else. Inside, the scribe lowers his head and keeps writing. Power does not always look like a throne. Sometimes it looks like concentration. You notice a damaged tablet near the wall. Only part of a name remains. The beginning is gone. The ending survives. The person is half remembered, half swallow. That fragment feels more haunting than a complete inscription. It shows memory in the act of failing. You want to restore the missing signs, but you cannot. No one can, unless another copy waits somewhere in the earth. This is the terror of the archive. It preserves, but never completely. The scribe's quiet authority therefore includes chance. Fire may bake a tablet and save it. Flood may dissolve another. A wall collapse may protect an archive under rubble. A later builder may reuse old clay without caring what names he destroys. Human memory depends on mud, heat, accident, and the attention of strangers not yet born. Rather humbling for a species fond of monuments. A hidden name in such a world has a strange destiny of its own. If kept only in speech, it may die with the last trained mouth. If pressed into clay, it may be found by enemies, students, or distant scholars who cannot feel its original danger. Preservation can betray secrecy. Jurtsi can destroy preservation. The scribe lives between those risks. He writes because the city needs memory. He withholds because sacred knowledge needs protection. He copies because tradition must continue. He corrects because errors multiply if left alone. He orders names because a named world can be governed, worshipped, healed, taxed, mourned, and remembered. At last, he finishes the tablet. He sets it carefully aside to dry. The signs darken slightly as the surface loses moisture. A name now rests in clay. Separated from the voice that gave it, the person may leave the room. The scribe may forget the face. The tablet may remain. You feel the quiet force of that separation. A living name is warm with breath. A written name is cool with endurance. A hidden name stands somewhere between them, needing both secrecy and survival. It is vulnerable to silence, but also vulnerable to exposure. The scribe, more than almost anyone, understands the danger of both. His stylus lies still. The afternoon light moves across the floor. Dust hangs in the air like tiny broken stars. In that hush, you begin to see the scribe not as a background figure, but as a keeper of destinies written small. He decides what can be read when voices are gone, and sometimes that is nearly the same as deciding who remains. A child is born while the city outside continues turning under the indifferent stars. The room is small, warm, and crowded with breath. A lamp smokes near the wall, making the ceiling dark above the beams. Women move carefully around the mother, bringing water, cloth, oil, and quiet instructions. Someone holds a bowl, someone mutters a prayer, someone tries to look calm and fails with admirable honesty. Birth is never casual. The air smells of sweat, milk, damp wool, crushed herbs, and clay dust carried in from the courtyard. Outside, the night insects sing without concern for human panic. A donkey shifts near a gate. A jar cools in the corner. Life enters the world through effort, fear, and a sound that suddenly changes everyone in the room. The infant cries. For a moment, everything stops. The child is not yet a worker. Priest, scribe, bride, widow, soldier, singer, brewer, or king. The child is only heat, skin, breath, and need. Yet already the world leans close with questions. Who is this one? To whom does this life belong? Which god will be thanked? Which dangers must be turned away? Which name will call this fragile breathing into human order? A mainstream historical fact gives shape to the scene. Mesopotamian personal names often carried meanings connected to family hopes, divine favour, gratitude, protection, or social identity. Scholars from Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have studied name patterns in tablets, legal documents, and administrative records. Names could preserve relationships with gods, parents, houses, and remembered circumstances around birth. So a name is not chosen lightly. It may express thanks because a child has survived. It may ask a god to protect what has arrived. It may remember a father, honour a deity, or mark a family's longing. A name can sound like a small prayer repeated every time the child is called. Imagine that breakfast becomes theology, scolding becomes theology too, which may explain a great deal. The family gathers around the newborn. The mother is exhausted. Her hair damp against her face, the child's skin is slick and soft, frighteningly delicate. An older woman watches the baby's breathing with the severity of someone who has seen both survival and loss. The father may stand outside the room, helpless in that ancient male tradition of being suddenly very interested in doorframes. The name waits, but the name is not the only force gathering. Birth in ancient Mesopotamia belonged to a world thick with risk. Infant mortality was high by modern standards, and childbirth could endanger mother and child alike. Families knew this not as statistics, but as empty cradles, quiet rooms, and names that stopped being spoken. Against such uncertainty, rituals of protection made emotional sense. They placed the newborn beneath a net of words, gods, gestures, and hopes. The infant must be introduced to existence. You sense the layered attention around the cradle. The family sees the child, the household sees a new member. The city may eventually record a name. The gods may be thanked, petitioned, or feared. Hostile forces may be kept at a distance through charms, prayers, or careful speech. The child's destiny begins in a crowded doorway, with visible and invisible watchers pressing near. This is where omens enter softly. Ancient Mesopotamians paid close attention to signs surrounding birth, unusual features, difficult deliveries, dreams, celestial events, or strange occurrences might be interpreted within a larger web of meaning. To modern eyes, some of this feels unsettling. To ancient families, signs offered a way to read vulnerability. The newborn arrived from mystery, and mystery demanded interpretation. The heavens mattered too. Stars, planets, lunar patterns, and eclipses could be treated as messages from the divine order. Learned diviners developed complex systems for reading celestial signs, especially in later Mesopotamian traditions. The sky was not merely scenery, it was a tablet overhead, vast, dark, and inconveniently difficult to store in an archive. A quirky tidbit belongs here. Some ancient omen collections included highly detailed interpretations of unusual births in humans or animals. They might link strange physical features with future events for a household, city, or king. Modern readers may raise an eyebrow, perhaps both. Yet these texts show a remarkable urge to connect the smallest arrival with the largest fate. A lamb born strangely could worry a palace. That is intense civic engagement from a lamb. Beneath the oddness lies a serious idea. Nothing arrives alone. A child enters a network of signs, obligations, and family memories, divine possibilities, and fears. The name given to that child does not float above these things. It gathers them. It may declare that a god has heard. It may ask that the child be spared. It may mark a birth after loss. It may carry a wish strong enough to be spoken daily. There is an open scholarly debate about how personal names should be interpreted. Some researchers treat them as evidence of popular piety, revealing ordinary devotion to gods within family life. Others caution that names can become conventional, repeated through habit without always expressing deep feeling. Both may be true. A name can begin as prayer and later become custom. Customs are often prayers that have learned to walk in their sleep. You look at the child again. The baby does not know any of this. The infant knows warmth, hunger, touch, and sound, yet sound will soon become identity. A chosen name will be repeated until the child turns toward it. The body will learn to answer. That is one of the quietest transformations in human life. A noise becomes recognition. Recognition becomes self. In ancient Sumer, this learning took place inside a named cosmos. The child might grow hearing divine names in hymns, family names in household speech, worker names in temple accounts, royal names in public inscriptions, and dangerous names in whispered warning. The child's own name would become the thread by which the world tugged gently, or not so gently, upon the self. A hidden name could add another layer. Perhaps not every child had one in a formal sense. The evidence does not allow such a broad claim. Yet the idea of concealed protection fits the emotional world of birth. A family might guard a child through amulets, prayers, or names invoking divine care. A ritual specialist might speak protective words that place the infant beyond the easy reach of hostile attention. The public name called the child into society, a guarded name or guarded formula, might call protection around the child's unseen vulnerability. You feel the tenderness of that possibility. The older woman lifts the baby and murmurs close to its ear. Her voice is too soft for the whole room. Perhaps she says a blessing. Perhaps she speaks the chosen name. Perhaps she speaks some private household phrase that will never reach clay. The infant blinks, startled by the enormous world and its terrible lighting. The mother smiles weakly. The moment is ordinary, and therefore sacred. A name is chosen because the child must begin somewhere. Destiny may be written by gods, read in omens, shaped by family, and altered by ritual. But in this room, destiny first becomes audible. The newborn is called, and this call creates a path. Others will use it. The child will answer. The name will gather years around itself. Perhaps the child will live long. Perhaps the child will become a singer, a brewer, a scribe, or a farmer with strong shoulders and tired feet. Perhaps the child will vanish from record entirely, leaving only descendants or none at all. Perhaps one small tablet will preserve the name by accident, because a ration was counted on a hot afternoon. That is how fragile survival can be. Still, the naming matters. It says this life has entered the circle. It says the child is not merely breath in darkness. This one belongs somewhere. This one has been seen. This one has been placed beneath family speech, divine possibility, and human hope. In a world that often takes without warning, such placement is a kind of defiance. The lamp burns lower. Good day. Outside, the stars continue their silent watch. Inside, the infant sleeps, wrapped in cloth, surrounded by tired adults who pretend not to be afraid. The name settles over the child like a first garment, thin but meaningful. Beneath it, perhaps, lies another name, too intimate or too sacred for the street. A name for protection, a name for destiny, a name not yet spoken aloud. The chamber is silent except for the small scrape of a reed against clay. A priest bends over a ritual tablet, and the flame beside him leans in the night air. The tablet is old enough to have chipped corners and darkened edges. Its surface carries lines copied by earlier hands, perhaps copied from tablets even older. The priest's eyes move slowly. He's not reading for pleasure. He is reading as one crossing a narrow bridge above water. One wrong step matters. The temple around him feels alert. Bowls have been placed in sequence. Water rests in a clean vessel. A cord lies coiled beside a small heap of flour. A servant waits near the doorway, trying not to breathe too loudly. The room smells of oil smoke, damp clay, and the faint mineral scent of washed stone. The words must be correct. In a culture where ritual speech was believed to act upon the world, error could not be dismissed as harmless. A confused name might address the wrong divine power. A missing title might weaken the appeal. A damaged formula might leave danger unnamed. Even a misplaced gesture could disturb the delicate path through which the rite was meant to work. Ancient religion often looks dramatic from far away. Close up, it is full of procedures. A mainstream historical fact anchors this carefulness. Mesopotamian ritual and scholarly tablets show repeated concern with proper performance. Exact wording, purification, sequence, and expert knowledge. Researchers from major institutions, including Oxford, Yale, Chicago, and Pennsylvania, studied these materials as evidence of learned ritual traditions. Priests, exorcists, diviners, and scribes operated within systems where technical accuracy carried sacred weight. The priest lifts the tablet closer to the lamp. He studies a divine name in the middle of a line. A crack runs near it, splitting the clay just enough to create doubt. He knows the surrounding phrase, he knows the formula by training, but doubt is still doubt. Does the sign belong to one title or another? Does the command address the affliction directly, or does it call upon the protective God first? The difference may seem tiny. To him, it is not. You feel the tension in his pause. The silence stretches, but gently, like cloth drawn over a sleeping body. He does not panic. Panic is for amateurs and kings without good advisors. Instead, he compares memory, context, tradition, and the shape of the remaining signs. Ritual knowledge lives in such moments, where certainty must be rebuilt from fragments. The incorrect word is dangerous because it misaligns the world. If naming places a thing within order, wrong naming places it badly. A hostile force could be ignored because the wrong one was named. A god could be approached under a title unsuited to the need. A sufferer could remain bound because the formula failed to identify the bond. Speech meant to heal might wander like a messenger sent to the wrong door. That image is quiet but unsettling. A messenger arrives at night. He carries urgent words, but the house is not the right house. Inside the true house, the sick still wait. Outside, the messenger knocks uselessly in darkness. So it is with incorrect ritual speech. It may travel, but not arrive. A quirky tidbit appears in the scribal world surrounding such anxiety. Some tablets include corrections, glosses, or explanatory notes that show ancient scholars wrestling with difficult signs and rare words. The past was not full of people confidently understanding everything. It was full of specialists squinting at older texts, which feels almost painfully relatable. Human civilization may be built on uncertainty and bad lighting. The priest is part of that long squinting tradition. He knows that sacred knowledge can decay. Clay breaks, teachers die, dialects shift, signs change, and a formula once clear may become difficult after centuries of copying. The hidden name guarded by tradition may become too hidden, even from those meant to preserve it. Secrecy protects, but it also risks forgetting. That is the cruel bargain. A name spoken too openly loses sacred control. A name hidden too deeply may vanish. A ritual formula repeated without understanding may continue as sound, but its inner force becomes uncertain. The priest stands between exposure and oblivion, trying to keep the words alive without letting them become common property. There is an active scholarly debate about the relationship between written ritual texts and actual performance. Some researchers argue that tablets functioned as practical guides for specialists. Others suggest that many texts were scholarly compilations, teaching tools, or archives of ideal knowledge rather than direct scripts. The truth likely varied by tablet, place, and period. The evidence, as usual, refuses to behave like a tidy servant. Still, the anxiety about correct words remains visible. You hear it in the repetition of formulas, you see it in the copying of lists, you sense it in the careful preservation of divine titles. The ancient specialist did not merely speak from inspiration, he entered a discipline, and disciplines fear mistakes. They fear them because mistakes reveal how fragile order really is. This fear reaches beyond temples. Every society knows the power of the wrong word. A false accusation can ruin a life. A mistaken name in a legal record can steal property. A broken promise can divide a family. A careless insult can begin a feud. Humans may laugh at ancient ritual anxiety, then spend their own days terrified of passwords and signatures, medical labels, and court documents. We are not so different, only our tablets glow. In the temple chamber, the priest finally chooses the reading. His voice begins low. The formula moves through the room, touching water, cord, flower, vessel, patient, and witness. He speaks the divine title with deliberate clarity. No syllable is hurried. The servant lowers his eyes, the flame brightens, then steadies. The rite continues. The danger of the incorrect word has not vanished. It has been answered by care. That care is the heart of sacred professionalism. The priest cannot guarantee the god's favour, the patient's recovery, or the future's kindness, but he can refuse negligence. He can give the rite its best chance of reaching the hidden place it seeks. Perhaps that was enough to inspire trust. You imagine a family listening from beyond the curtain. They do not know every sign on the tablet. They cannot judge every divine title, but they hear the seriousness. They feel the slow confidence of a trained voice. Their own fear becomes slightly less wild because someone else is guiding the words. Guided words are powerful. Unguided words scatter. The hidden name, in this atmosphere, becomes almost too precious. It must not be guessed. It must not be thrown into speech for effect. It must not be confused with similar names or decorative titles. It belongs where precision and need meet. To use it wrongly would be like placing a key into the wrong lock and breaking it inside. The image lingers. A broken key is worse than no key. The priest finishes at the line and touches the tablet's edge. His fingers are steady, but his face is tired. The work of guarding names is not glamorous, it is repetitive, exacting, and haunted by the possibility of loss. He must remember what others have forgotten, and doubt what others speak too easily. The room remains still. Somewhere outside, wind moves dust along the courtyard. The city sleeps, trusting that specialists will keep certain boundaries intact. The people may not know every formula. They may not understand every hidden title. They may not care. Until illness, omen, childbirth, grief, or royal crisis brings them to the temple door. Then accuracy becomes mercy. The wrong word could misdirect help. The right word could gather scattered hope into a single path. Between them lies the entire fragile art of ritual speech. The Sumerian priest stands there, not as a magician waving drama through the air, but as a custodian of dangerous exactness. He knows what careless speech can do. He knows that a human destiny may hang, not always on thunder or war, but on a name spoken correctly in a dark room, over water, clay, smoke, and fear. The ground beyond the houses is cool, and evening gathers over the burial place. You walk where the city's noise becomes softer. where footsteps slow without being told. The air smells of dry soil, old reeds, faint smoke, and offerings left in small vessels. A low wind moves dust along the earth, then lets it settle again. Nothing here is empty. The dead are not gone in the simple way modern speech often pretends. They remain near. A grave is not merely a hole in the ground. It is a boundary, a dwelling, a memory chamber, and a point of contact between family and what lies beyond ordinary sight. Bodies may rest beneath floors, in cemeteries, or in places shaped by custom, wealth, and local practice. The dead have become silent, but their names still require care. That care is deeply human. A mainstream historical fact steadies this twilight landscape. Archaeological excavations in Mesopotamia, including work associated with major American and British institutions, have revealed graves furnished with vessels, ornaments, tools, and offerings. Scholars from universities such as Pennsylvania, Chicago, and Oxford have examined burial practices as evidence for social rank, household memory, and beliefs about continuing existence. The grave goods do not all speak with one voice, yet they show that death was managed through ritual and relationship. The dead needed attention. Families offered food, drink, and memory. In many Mesopotamian traditions, the proper care of ancestors mattered greatly. The deceased were not imagined as floating away into perfect forgetfulness. They belonged to a shadowed condition that could still touch the living, especially if neglected. A name spoken at the right time could help keep the relationship stable. You pause near a small vessel set beside a grave. Its clay is rough, with a chipped rim. Perhaps it once held water, beer, oil, or grain. Perhaps a hand placed it there in grief, duty, fear, or habit. The person beneath the earth cannot lift it. Yet the gesture matters because ritual does not always depend on visible consumption. It depends on relationships sustained through action. The name is central to that relationship. A dead person whose name is remembered remains connected to household and lineage. A dead person whose name is forgotten drifts toward a second loss. Death takes the breath first, forgetting takes the outline. That second death may have frightened ancient people as much as the first, though it came quietly, without fever, blade, or flood. You feel the sadness of it. A name once called across a courtyard becomes a whisper at a grave. The same syllables that summon someone to bread now summon memory. The voice changes because the listener has changed. Still, the family speaks. They speak because silence would concede too much to darkness. A quirky tidbit appears in the haunting economy of the dead. Some Mesopotamian texts suggest that neglected spirits could become restless or troublesome. To modern ears, that may sound like an afterlife with rather strict customer service expectations. Yet beneath the dry humour is a serious social truth. The dead continued to claim obligations from the living, and the living continued to need order in grief. Ancestor care kept memory disciplined. Grief without form can become unbearable. A grave, a name, a vessel, a repeated offering. These give sorrow a path. The mourner does not simply drown in absence. The mourner performs relationship. The dead person is fed through memory, and the living person is held by routine. This is where hidden names become especially delicate. A public name preserves the dead among the living. It allows descendants to say, "This one belonged to us." Yet a more intimate name may remain inside the household, known only to those who loved the person closely. A mother's private name for a child, a spouse's tender nickname, a ritual designation spoken during burial. These may never enter an archive. They disappear with the mouths that carried them. Such names are fragile treasures. They do not seek monuments. They live in breath. They are spoken softly while washing a body, wrapping cloth, placing offerings, or touching the threshold one last time. The official name may survive in clay, The hidden name may survive only in the heart, which is a beautiful but unreliable storage system. Very human, though, there is an open, scholarly debate about the exact nature of Mesopotamian beliefs concerning the dead. Some researchers emphasize a gloomy underworld and the importance of offerings to maintain the deceased. Others point to variation across time, region, and social class. Noting that beliefs changed and did not always form one tidy system, the evidence encourages care. The dead in Mesopotamian thought are vivid, but they are not easy to summarize. The burial place reflects that complexity. Some graves are modest, holding only the body and a few simple goods. Others are richer, filled with ornaments, vessels, weapons, musical instruments, or signs of rank. The difference between them reminds you that destiny does not end in equality. Even death can be organized by status. Humanity really does bring paperwork everywhere, even to the edge of eternity. Yet every grave shares one need: recognition. Someone must know who lies there, someone must remember. Someone must bring the proper offering or speak the proper formula. In the absence of a name, the grave becomes anonymous earth. In the presence of a name, it remains a human place. You kneel near the soil and imagine a family gathering. Their clothing is plain, their faces tired from mourning. A child stands close to an older relative, confused by the solemnity. A woman pours liquid into the ground. A man speaks the name of the dead in a voice that almost breaks but does not. Around them, evening thickens, and the first stars appear above the city wall. The name enters the earth. It does not revive the body, it does not cancel grief, it does not answer every question whispered into darkness, but it holds a line between the living and the lost. It says that this person is not only remains, this person was called, known, fed, feared, loved, and placed within a family's memory. That placement may protect both sides. The dead receive remembrance. The living receive distance from terror. The relationship is acknowledged, so it need not return as disorder. The event becomes a bridge across a boundary that no one crosses willingly, though everyone eventually does. Hidden names deepen the bridge. A public funeral name may address the community. A private name may address the soul. If one may use that word gently here, it reaches toward the person beneath status, labor, and record. It says, not only were you someone in the city, but you were someone to us. The difference is quiet and enormous. You hear the wind move over the graves. It makes no speech of its own, yet it carries the memory of voices. Many names once spoken here have vanished. Some were pressed into clay, some were carved or stamped, many were not. The dead of Sumer are countless, and most are beyond recovery. Archaeology can find bones, beads, jars, and walls. It cannot restore every lullaby, joke, argument, promise, or private name. That absence is part of the story. The priests may guard divine names, and scribes may preserve royal names, but ordinary hidden names often fall into silence. Their power was real to those who spoke them precisely because they were intimate. Their disappearance does not make them meaningless, it makes them human. The burial place grows darker. A final offering is left. The family turns back toward the city, where lamps already glow in doorways. The dead remain beneath the ground, wrapped in earth and memory. Their destiny has changed. They no longer labor, eat, marry, speak, or answer. Yet their names continue to work among the living, shaping inheritance, grief, duty, fear, and love. A remembered name keeps a person from complete erasure. A forgotten name lets the dust close more fully. And somewhere between public memory and private tenderness, the hidden name of the dead lingers like a last warm ember beneath ash. The tablet before you is not a story, yet it feels more mysterious than any tale. It is a list. Line follows line with patient severity. Divine names, Titles, offices, places, numbers, functions, and categories gather in careful order. Nothing leaps or shouts, no hero storms a wall, no goddess steals a treasure, no king raises his weapon beneath a burning sky. Still, the tablet has a quiet gravity, because it suggests that behind the visible world stands a system, a hidden structure. You sit in a scribal room while the afternoon heat presses against the walls. The clay tablet rests on a low bench, dust clings to the edges of baskets, a fly circles with pointless determination near a jar of water. The scribe ignores it with the tired dignity of someone preserving civilization while insects contribute nothing useful. The list continues. At first it seems dry, then and slowly, the arrangement begins to feel like a map. One god belongs with one function, one title leads toward another title. One city has its patron, one office serves a ritual, one number may organize a group, a sequence, or a sacred pattern. The world is being reduced into names, yet also expanded through them. This is the paradox of lists. They simplify by separating. They deepen by connecting. A mainstream historical fact gives weight to this room. Ancient Mesopotamian scribal education preserved extensive lexical lists, god lists, profession lists, place lists, and other classified texts. Scholars from Chicago, Yale, Oxford, and Pennsylvania have studied these materials as evidence for how scribes organized knowledge. These lists trained memory, supported administration, and helped shape scholarly views of the cosmos. The list is therefore not boring bookkeeping alone. It is a technology of thought. A list says that the world can be gathered. It says that chaos can be placed in rows. It says that knowledge becomes stronger when names stand in relation to other names. For a Sumerian priest or scribe, such ordering could feel like participation in divine order itself. To arrange names correctly was to reflect the structure by which existence remained intelligible. You lean closer. Some names are great and familiar to the learned temple world. Others are minor, local, obscure, almost hidden between better-known powers. Yet they are not meaningless. Their presence suggests that reality has corners. A god of one city, a title for one ritual need, a spirit linked with one boundary, a function known only to specialists. All these fit somewhere. The system has rooms within rooms. That matters for destiny. If fate is part of a system, then a human life is not isolated. It belongs to networks of family, city, deity, profession, omen, season, ritual status, and memory. A hidden name could be imagined as the private coordinate within that vast arrangement. It is not merely secret because secrecy is dramatic. It is secret because only specialists know where it belongs. You imagine a priest searching such a mental map. A sufferer arrives with misfortune. The priest does not simply guess. He considers categories. Is the danger impurity? Is it divine anger? Is it a demon? Is it a curse? Is it an omen? Is it a broken relationship with the dead? Each possibility requires different words, different names, different actions. Healing begins as classification. That may sound cold, yet classification can be merciful. A fear without category spreads everywhere. A fear placed inside a named pattern becomes approachable. The priest's hidden system gives shape to dread. It tells him which divine name to invoke, which hostile force to address, which ritual object to prepare, and which words to protect from casual ears. A quirky tidbit belongs to number and pattern. Mesopotamian scholars use the sexagesimal system, based on 60 means, which still shadows modern timekeeping in 60 minutes and 60 seconds. So when you glance at a clock in the night, a very old mathematical habit is quietly watching you. Ancient accountants, apparently, remain undefeated. Numbers were not only practical, they could also organize sacred imagination. Groups of gods, sequences of offerings, Calendrical cycles and astronomical observations all depended on ordered counting. The sky moved through patterns, rituals returned at appointed times, fields followed seasons, human life unfolded within rhythms that could be counted, named, and anticipated. A cycle is a promise with a memory. The Sumerian temple world lived by cycles, daily offerings returned. Monthly observances followed the moon. Agricultural labour moved through planting, watering, and cutting, threshing, all on storing and distributing. Festivals renewed relationships between gods, cities, and rulers. A human being born into such a world did not drift through empty time. Time itself had named stations. Destiny could be cyclical as well as linear. A person might suffer, purify, return. A city might fall into disorder, lament, rebuild. A king might receive power, fail, be replaced. A god might depart in anger, be invited back through rite. The pattern does not erase pain, but it gives pain a place in a larger movement. Repetition makes catastrophe slightly less formless. There is an open, scholarly debate about whether Mesopotamian lists reflect practical education, sacred worldview, or both at once. Some researchers emphasize the schoolroom and administrative needs. Others stress the intellectual and theological ambition behind organizing everything from fish to gods. The strongest reading may allow both. Ancient people could count sheep and contemplate the universe with the same stylus. That is not a contradiction. It is civilization. You watch a young scribe recite from a list. His voice is steady at first, then falters when he reaches an obscure name. The teacher corrects him. The correction is quiet, but firm. A misplaced name disturbs the chain. The student begins again, slower. He learns not only information, but humility before order. The list trains the mouth. That matters because ritual knowledge depends on memory under pressure. When a family waits in fear, when a festival begins, when a ruler dedicates a building, when an omen troubles the palace, the specialist cannot wander through uncertainty forever. He must know the correct place in the system. The right name must rise at the right moment. You can sense the hidden machinery beneath the calm surface. Divine offices, sacred titles, ritual roles, human professions, city patrons, offering sequences, calendars, omens, ancestor obligations. Scribes and priests do not invent this machinery each morning. They inherit it, maintain it, and sometimes adjust it. The system is old, yet it survives only through repeated human care. A hidden name fits this machinery like a small concealed gear. If missing, perhaps the visible ritual still turns, but not quite as intended. If exposed, perhaps the gear is taken, misused, or broken. If remembered properly, it connects the visible act to the unseen purpose. It lets the priest address not the surface of the problem, but its place in the deeper structure. That deeper structure may never be completely visible. Even the learned do not know everything. Texts are fragmentary, traditions differ. A city's god may be central in one place and secondary in another. A title may shift across centuries. A ritual may preserve older phrases whose original meaning grows dim. The system is grand, but not perfectly clear, even to those inside it. This uncertainty makes it more human. A perfect system would be terrifying in a different way. It would leave no room for tenderness, improvisation, or doubt. The Sumerian world, as glimpsed through tablets, feels both ordered and anxious. Its lists reach for total arrangement, but its laments confess brokenness. Its rituals seek control, but its prayers ask for mercy. Its names organize the cosmos, but its hidden names admit that some powers must remain veiled. You feel the room darken as the sun lowers. The tablet list has not changed, yet your understanding has. It is no longer a dull sequence. It is an attempt to reconstruct the invisible skeleton of reality. Every name is a joint, every category is a bone, every number is a rhythm by which the body of the world might stand. The scribe sets down his stylus. The priest carries the system in memory. The city moves within it without fully seeing it. And somewhere within that vast arrangement, a human destiny waits not as a single line, but as a position among names, numbers, offices, gods, cycles, and signs. To know the hidden name is to know one's secret coordinate in that immense old patterns. Perhaps that is why it mattered so deeply. Not because one word simply overpowered fate, but because one word might reveal where fate was fastened. The temple grows quiet again, and a question settles into the darkness like fine dust. What did the priest fear? Not in the simple way one fears a snake in the reeds or a thief near the gate. Those fears are sharp, ordinary, and practical. The deeper fear is slower. It moves beneath ritual, beneath official language, beneath the careful lists and polished vessels. It is the fear that human life may be more fragile than anyone can bear to admit. The priest knows this fragility well. He sees infants brought for protection, workers brought by illness, families brought by grief, rulers brought by omens, and houses brought under suspicion. He hears dreams recited in trembling voices. He watches offerings placed with hope and desperation mixed together. People come to the temple when the world no longer feels steady. They come because someone must know what to say. That expectation is heavy. The priest is not merely keeper of beautiful words. He is keeper of human panic. He receives it, gives it form, places it inside inherited procedure, and returns it as something the sufferer can survive. That may be why hidden names mattered so much. They offered not only power, but a disciplined way to face terror. A mainstream historical fact grounds this tension. Mesopotamian texts preserve prayers, laments, incantations, omens, and rituals created for moments of danger, illness, royal crisis, pollution, and divine displeasure. Scholars at Yale, Oxford, Chicago, and Pennsylvania have studied these sources as evidence for a culture deeply concerned with maintaining order against forces of disruption. Religious practice was not an ornament on life. It was one of the methods by which life was made bearable. The priest may have feared disorder most of all. Disorder in the body, disorder in the household, disorder in the city, disorder between humans and gods, disorder in speech itself. When wrong names or broken formulas sent meaning astray, the Sumerian world was built on canals, and canals teach a stern lesson. Water gives life when guided. Water destroys when uncontrolled. So it is with destiny. If fate has channels, then ritual tries to keep them clear. If names are gates, then the priest guards them. If hidden speech can redirect danger, then careless speech can release it. Beneath the calm surface of temple service lies this anxiety. The world is not stable by itself. It must be maintained. You feel that maintenance everywhere. The floor is swept because dust returns. The offering is placed because hunger returns. The hymn is sung because silence returns. The name is preserved because forgetting returns. The ritual is repeated because disorder returns. Patient and impolite, civilization, in this vision, is not victory over chaos, it is a daily negotiation with it. That thought is slightly unsettling. It is also honest. A quirky tidbit appears in the careful behavior of ritual experts. Some Mesopotamian texts prescribe highly particular actions for averting evil, including timing, materials, gestures, and spoken formulas. To a modern listener, the details can feel almost excessive, but when fear is too large, detail becomes comforting. It is harder to panic when someone tells you exactly which cord to tie and where to place the bowl. Procedure gives fear a job. The priest may have feared that without procedure, fear would devour the community. A house struck by illness could become a place of suspicion. A bad omen near the palace could unsettle political confidence. A failed harvest could turn hunger into blame. A death without proper care could disturb the living. Ritual does not solve every problem, but it slows panic long enough for meaning to return. Hidden names fit this work because they preserve controlled meaning. They are not shouted in the street. They are not used to impress neighbours. They belong to moments when ordinary naming has failed. The public name identifies the person in daily life, but fear can strip daily life away. In crisis, the sufferer needs another kind of address, one that reaches beneath social role and speaks to the threatened root of existence. Perhaps priests feared losing that reach. A name forgotten cannot be spoken, a formula corrupted cannot be trusted, a divine title misapplied may not open the needed door. The hidden name is powerful only while living tradition protects it. The priest therefore fears not only demons, sickness, or divine anger. He fears interruption. He fears the break in transmission. He fears the moment when the old word no longer arrives. There is an open scholarly debate about how much actual social control temple specialists exercise through ritual knowledge. Some researchers emphasize the power of expert secrecy and technical language. Others argue that ritual authority was one part of a broader social world, balanced by families, rulers, local customs, and practical needs. Both readings illuminate the evidence. Priests held knowledge, but knowledge depended on trust. Trust is the invisible altar. Without trust, the hidden name is only sound. Without trust, the ritual object is only clay. Without trust, the temple is only architecture. People bring their fear because they believe the priest stands within a lineage of effective words. That belief itself reshapes the room. It allows the frightened person to surrender chaos into form. You imagine the priest alone after a ritual. The family has gone, the lamp burns low, the objects have been removed, washed, buried, or discarded as required. The chamber smells of cooling smoke and damp stone. He sits for a moment, no longer performing certainty. Perhaps his shoulders ache. Perhaps he wonders whether the child will recover, whether the god heard, whether the old formula still holds its edge. This quiet doubt makes him more real. Ancient priests were human beings, not symbols carved from confidence. They aged, worried, remembered failure. Yes, and carried responsibility. Some may have believed with steady conviction. Some may have relied on tradition even when inner certainty wavered. Some may have feared the gods deeply. Some may have feared people more. Every age has its professionals of mystery, and every profession has a tired eyes at the end of the day. Yet he continues. He continues because the alternative is silence. Silence offers no path for grief. Silence gives illness no name. Silence leaves destiny sealed and faceless. The priest's guarded words do not conquer mortality, but they let people stand before it with something in their hands, a bowl, a thread, a prayer, a name. That may be the true heart of the belief. Hidden names offered control, but not complete control. They offered comfort, but not false safety. They offered a shield, but one made of breath, memory, and sacred confidence. The priest may have known that in some unspoken way that human destiny cannot be mastered entirely. Still, he also knew that a life addressed with care is different from a life abandoned to nameless fear. You hear the night deepen beyond the temple wall. The river moves through darkness, carrying silt, reflections, and the faint smell of reeds. The city sleeps in uneven peace. Inside houses, children breathe, old people turn on mats, and someone lies awake counting worries that no tablet records. Above them, the stars remain cold and orderly, as if heaven has never misplaced a single sign. The priest cannot promise such order on earth. He can only preserve fragments of it, a hidden name, a divine title, a ritual sequence, a careful correction, a memory of what must be said when everything else fails. These fragments form a fragile shield against chaos, Not iron, not stone, something softer and maybe more enduring. You begin to feel what the priests may have feared. Not merely the demon at the door, not merely the angry god. They may have feared the unnamed life, the unremembered dead, the unclassified disaster, the broken word, the child without protection, the city without ritual, and the destiny no one knew how to approach. So they guarded name. They guarded them because names were handles on the dark. The final chamber is almost empty, and that emptiness feels more eloquent than any inscription. A single lamp burns near the wall, its flame small and steady. The air smells of old clay, extinguished incense, dry reeds, and stone that has cooled through the night. You stand where voices once gathered, where priests once leaned over vessels, where names were spoken with care, withheld with caution, and carried into silence by human breath. Nothing answers aloud. That is fitting. The hidden name has never belonged to noise. It has belonged to thresholds, to bedsides, to burial places, to royal foundations, to tablets tucked away from careless hands, and to the quiet space between fear and form. It has belonged to the human hope that destiny is not only a wall, but perhaps a surface that can receive another mark. The temple itself now seems like a name. Its walls name the god's dwelling, its courtyard names public devotion, its inner room names secrecy, its altar names offering, its floor names the thousands of feet that passed across it without leaving written record. Even its silence names absence. A ruin is never only a ruin. It is a sentence from which most of the words have fallen away. A mainstream historical fact stands beneath this final stillness. Modern archaeology has recovered vast numbers of cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, including administrative records, hymns, myths, lexical lists, prayers, and ritual texts. Researchers at major institutions such as the University of Pennsylvania, Chicago, Yale, Oxford, and the British Museum have helped reconstruct parts of Sumerian religious life through these fragments. The surviving evidence is immense, yet incomplete. That incompleteness matters. You do not possess the whole temple, so you possess pieces, a line from a hymn, a broken name in a list, a ritual instruction with one damaged sign, a royal title pressed into brick, a child's name on an account, a god's epithet preserved by a student's careful hand. History arrives not as a palace fully furnished, but as rooms opened by lightning. You see for a moment, then darkness returns. Perhaps that is why the hidden name remains so powerful in imagination. It fits the condition of the evidence itself. The past speaks, but not completely. It gives names, but not every meaning. It preserves rituals, but not every tone of voice. It shows belief, but not always the private emotion inside belief. You can read the clay, yet you cannot always hear the breath that first warmed the words. The Sumerian priest stands in that gap. He is visible enough to be studied, but distant enough to remain strange. He knows names that organize the gods, titles that approach divine functions, formulas that comfort the sick, and rituals that shape fear into action, yet his own inward life is mostly hidden. Did he feel certainty when he spoke? Did he tremble? Did he ever doubt the old words when a child did not recover? The tablets do not say. Their silence is A quirky tidbit lingers at the edge of this silence. Some tablets survived because ancient cities burned, collapsing and baking clay records that might otherwise have crumbled. Disaster became preservation. Fire, which destroyed roofs and lives, also hardened memory for distant readers. History has a dark sense of humour, and it rarely apologizes. That strange survival feels almost like a parable. A human life is fragile, yet a name can endure by accident. A secret can vanish through careful concealment, while a routine account can survive in perfect dryness under rubble. The sacred and the ordinary trade places across time. A shopping list of barley may outlive a king's prayer. A student exercise may preserve a divine name better than a temple wall. So what finally did hidden names mean? Perhaps they were not one thing. Perhaps they were divine titles held for the precise invocation. Perhaps they were ritual identities used in healing, protection, or purification. Perhaps they were private household names that guarded affection from the street. Perhaps they were scholarly names nested inside god lists and sacred classifications. Perhaps they were all these things, shifting from room to room, mouth to mouth, century to century. The past resists cages. There is an open scholarly debate about how far ideas of secret names can be traced within early Sumerian religion itself, rather than later Mesopotamian magical traditions or broader ancient Near Eastern patterns. Some scholars emphasize caution because the evidence is scattered and often indirect. Others see a persistent logic of powerful naming across ritual, myth, kingship, and memory. Between these positions lies a careful middle path, where mystery remains possible without becoming careless certainty. That middle path is where you now stand. It is not the path of wild claims. It is not the path of dry dismissal. It is the quiet road between clay and dream, where evidence glows softly and imagination walks slowly beside it. You are allowed to wonder, as long as wonder keeps its hands clean. The hidden name then may be understood as an ancient answer to vulnerability. Humans are born without armor. They are named by others, judged by others, remembered or forgotten by others. They live beneath weather they cannot command, gods they cannot fully understand, illnesses they cannot predict, and deaths they cannot postpone forever. A hidden name offers one small reversal. It says there may be a part of the self not entirely available to harm, a guarded center, a secret address, a last unbroken thread. For the Sumerian priest, speaking such a name or guarding it might have felt like touching the seam between the visible and invisible worlds. The public body suffers, the public name is known, the public record can be counted, assigned, praised, taxed, or buried. But somewhere below that, perhaps, lies another designation, one that belongs to destiny's deeper clay. If reached carefully, it may redirect. If exposed carelessly, it may endanger. If forgotten completely, it may fall into the nameless dark. You look around the chamber once more. The lamp burns lower, and shadows gather along the floor. No priest comes, no scribe enters, no singer begins a hymn. The tablets are elsewhere now, resting in museums, storerooms, archives, and scholarly editions. The city that breathed around them has become earth, memory, and reconstruction. Yet the old question remains, Theo. What is the name beneath the name? Every culture has asked it in some form. People change names after vows, after grief, after power, after disgrace, after healing, after exile, after rebirth. They hide childhood names. They keep private names for love. They protect passwords as if guarding modern spirits. They speak names over graves. They whisper names in hospital rooms. They know, without needing a temple, that names still touch destiny. The Sumerians placed that knowledge inside a sacred cosmos. They gave it gods, tablets, rites, omens, lists, offerings, and trained mouths. They imagined a world where destiny could be decreed, but also approached. Not conquered, not mocked. Approached with water, smoke, clay, song, and the correct name spoken at the correct time. The lamp flickers. The unspoken name remains. Unspoken. Perhaps that's how it must be. A hidden name loses something if dragged fully into daylight. Its power lives partly in restraint, in the knowledge that not everything sacred should become explanation. Some truths are approached by circling. Some doors open only inward. Some names protect because they remain veils. And perhaps the story is not yet complete. The night softens now, and the temple withdraws into darkness with no need to prove itself. You have walked among clay tablets, dawn smoke, river water, careful hands, and names that once carried the weight of lives. Let those images loosen. Let the brick walls grow distant. Let the lamp become a stars. Then a smaller stir. Then only a warm point behind your closed eyes. The old priests do not need you to solve every mystery tonight. The clay has waited for thousands of years, and it can wait a little longer. The rivers continue moving in the dark. The reeds bend and rise again. The buried tablets rest without hurry, holding their broken lines, their half-names, their patient silence. You are allowed to leave the question unanswered. Perhaps that is the gentlest ending a story like this can have. Not a final key turning into final lock, but a soft doorway left slightly open. Somewhere in that opening. Destiny is not a command shouted from the sky. It is a quiet thread passing through the breath, memory, and the names people dare to speak. Let the thread loosen from your hand. Let the ancient rooms fade. The temple floor cools beneath the moon. The last smoke thins into the upper darkness. Somewhere far beyond the walls, water touches the bank with a sound so small it almost becomes silence. The hidden name is safe now, folded back into the night, neither lost nor found. And you too may rest. No answer is required. Only breath, only darkness, only the old world sleeping beneath the dust, waiting without impatience for another dreamer to listen. Good night.